Hey, welcome back to the Break Room Podcast. And as you can see, doing a virtual show because we have our friend, the incomparable Marilyn. She is one of our dear friends, and we're excited to have her on the show and to break up the sausage fest that is the Break Room Podcast. Give us some feminine clarity to the show.
Thank you. That's why I'm here, the token female, here to
Welcome
represent.
to the show, Marilyn.
I am
We're
here,
so hyped to have you.
ready to
Nailing it.
ready to bring estrogen to the floor. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Hey. But we're excited because this is our very first guest on the Break Room Podcast, and that's why we're virtual because we're trying to figure out how to make all this work. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to finally have a fresh opinion to bring to the table, and we're hoping to have more guests in the future. So we're trying to iron out all the kinks as we've been doing for the last year. So this is officially the first episode of season 2 of the Break Room Podcast because our 1 year anniversary was our last episode. So now we're going to try to focus on doing some more stuff like this, bringing on guests. Maybe we'll try to bring some more games into the show. But I think we have some fun stuff on the horizon. But as one of our resident Tolkien fans, we definitely wanted to dive into some Rings of Power discussion because I don't think we've done enough justice to talking to that show because 90% of this show is, well, I would say 100% of the show are Game of Thrones fans, but I'm really the only one that's like a real Tolkien fan. So it's nice to have a Tolkien female onto the show.
Token female.
Tolkien nailed it.
Yeah, you really did. You really did.
Pour that drink. You're gonna need it.
Do it, yeah. Salud.
That's essentially a shot. It's fine.
That's
one
right.
drink to rule them all.
A child's shot.
We had to start it right. I couldn't start before. I had to start right now. I got a little mixer. Trader Joe's not sponsored.
So wait, we're gonna talk Rings of Power. Let's take a vote. How many people have actually watched this? All right. So I think that says a lot. As you said, we're big Game of Thrones guys, and
Chris has never even seen a season.
Donnie
or
Brasco or
anything that's not watched one Lord of the Rings movie, not The Hobbit.
It was only thanks to me that I forced him to watch The Big Lebowski on my birthday.
Yeah, we had him.
Yeah, which was not a great experience because you guys quoted everything before it was said, so you just stepped on every punchline there was.
You're mildly curious to watch it on your own now, just to see. Yeah, no, you are.
Is there a reason that you did not? Is there 20 years later? Do you have anything to share why you never watched them?
Well, I mean, The Big Lebowski, we already covered that in the past. I don't know why. I actually, there's a whole story about how I wiped my ass with a Blockbuster game. And at the end of it, I ended up coming out with a copy of The Big Lebowski for free, which I still have. It's actually over there somewhere, but I still have never watched it. I started watching it.
Talking about Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so Lord of the Rings I never watched because I intend to read. I wanted to read the books, and I started.
That's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, I got audio. I have some of the audiobooks, but I started reading The Hobbit. And coming from Game of Thrones, which is so violent and real and kind of honest, and going from that brutal Game of Thrones to The Hobbit, where these little dwarf guys break into his house and start making a mess, and it was like all these made-up words, wishy-wooshy. I don't know. There was just like the flugly flams were going into the fliggleflorps, and I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
I'm sorry.
And I
you
stopped.
mushrooms when you were reading it, Chris?
No, dude. There's like all these.
Or was that The Hobbit? I'm confused.
It was like The Hobbit. I don't know, and it was just a little too childish for my liking.
You have to realize, Chris, that The Hobbit was written as a children's story for his grandchildren.
I know. You're right.
And then he decided to write The Lord of the Rings and tie it into the original children's story that he wrote. So if you want the more adult version, you could start with The Fellowship of the Ring, but you really need the background of The Hobbit to explain why the fuck they're going on this journey in the first place, or how he got the ring, or any of that shit.
Yeah.
So
no, I know, and I know it ages with the reader.
The story matures as it goes,
right?
And you really need to get past that whole embarking on the journey part, because then it truly does become like a fellowship, because you start caring about the characters that he's traveling with and seeing what happens and what drives them, and You can see how their pride and their greed get in the way of their own success, and it tells a well-rounded story by the end. And then to continue that with the next generation of his family and tell the grand story that is the Lord of the Rings. Honestly, as good as the movies are, they don't do justice to the books because there's a lot of stuff that's left out.
Rob or Marilyn, you can kind of chime in. If Chris was a Lord of the Rings character, who would he be and why?
I already know who I'd be.
Gollum.
Gollum. No, I'm not that grasping. I'm much more selfless than Gollum is.
I
be
would
honest.
say self-righteous, maybe.
No, I would be Boromir. Fucking one does not simply trying to fucking speak some sense, and I would end up
Ned
dead.
Stark.
He just wants to be Sean Bean.
No, I would end up killed. That's how I would have no great character arc. I'd be killed in battle by a fucking orc. It's probably what
And
would
no
happen.
one would be opposed, and the rest of us would go on the journey. and
Exactly.
you would-
Live forever. Yeah.
And I think, do you know what happens to him right before he gets killed? Is this a spoiler from 20 years ago? Or do you want me to?
Well,
'cause
so
it's
that's
very
the thing is-
on-brand for you.
There are scenes that I've seen. There are things I know have happened.
Okay.
So there's a lot that's already been spoiled for
One
me.
does not simply just watch clips of Lord of the Rings.
Well,
I
that's
know,
the
it's
thing,
really-
and so that changes how you watch things too. I mean, I'll tell you, Star Wars was the same thing. Like I already knew Luke, I am your father, watching Star Wars because it's been parodied so many times, and you know what I mean. So like, when we're talking about older stuff, there's a lot of things that have already been spoiled, and maybe that's also why it's forever been on the back burner. I ended up reading the Star Wars books instead, Rob. So.
Star Wars books.
Yeah, hey.
Well, give the Lord of the Rings a
Kevin
shot. I mean,
Smith.
it's
I will.
high fantasy, so it falls more into the same category as Game of Thrones, more so than Star Wars, which is more of a space opera / sci-fi fiction kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's not going to watch it, Rob.
No,
It's-
I will.
Changed
Lord
my
I
of the
want
Rings
to.
has deep-rooted history. Like you're the type of person that enjoyed like the precursor to the Game of Thrones and read all that stuff and can appreciate deep lore. There's nothing that goes deeper than the Lord of the Rings, and every single one of your favorite high fantasy books for the last 50 years at least has been heavily influenced by the Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the
I
Rings
mean, we sat there
literally
and watched the man himself.
is the
give praise
source
to
material
Tolkien.
for a lot of that shit. You know, he created maps. He was a cartographer. He created poetry and he created
linguist.
languages.
Yeah.
It was real. I should have dug it out. I have my old box set of the Lord of the Rings books. And
There's also a movie
um,
about him himself when he was in the war, right?
yeah, well, he
Okay.
based the Shire
that?
and Middle Earth on his time in Wales during his service.
Okay, so with
Of,
everybody's fandom, I know. Well, with the folks who seem very interested and steeped in the Lord of the Rings lore, why are we not watching the show? What's going
I
on?
think
Well,
that it comes from the same
That's what I
place
want
as
to know.
us
I
as-
mean,
It comes
I'm
from the same
curious.
place as us as Marvel fans when we watch a movie and it's not really the best, and it's like, well, wait, why didn't they just stick to the source material? Because it was better than what they put out. See, ignorance is bliss for me with this Rings of Power, because I read the original Lord of the Rings books, but admittedly, when I tried to read the Silmarillion, it was like reading a fucking textbook, and I immediately lost interest. So
Well,
I
you
don't.
in luck, Rob. It's not based on either. So
I
in luck
apparently
watching
that's
this show.
the complaint, right? Is that the complaint, Marilyn?
So it all started last summer. We're all gonna sit, everyone tuck in. We're gonna have a
Yeah,
story.
hold on, let me
Yeah,
get my drink.
you're the special
You're
guest.
my
I want
guest.
Marilyn
Thank
controlling.
you. This is my show.
Fight
As
the
I said in
patriarchy.
As I said
Let's
in
hear
the
it.
pre-show, this is not actually your show anymore. This is me using you to push down,
to
like the man
Marilyn's
who's putting nose down in the
springboard.
water to breathe. That's what I'm springboarding my career. Anyway, so it all starts really 5 years ago when a lot of fans find out, well, they do a press release, that Amazon buys the rights to the show, Amazon being a corporation.
That was 5 years ago already?
I think it's around 5. Don't
Wow.
quote me,
Couple
but this is like
$1 billion,
years.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, for a cool $1 billion. And if you know anything about this fandom, which Chris, I don't think you do, but if you know anything about them, they, Tolkien himself is the man hated the concept of a locomotive. He thought it was like a disgusting capitalist, scar on the world. He actually hated trains, and his son loved them. It's like a whole story, whatever. So years ago, when they find this out, they're not particularly fond of, who's at the reins and who owns, Amazon being, the
Bezos.
proprietor. Then last summer, we roll out the first promo pic, which is really this gorgeous just one picture of, you know, looks like a painting of like John Howe and a lot of Lord of the Rings artists would produce, a beautiful vista of an elven city and a singular character looking into the distance. And we start like, that's where you start getting fed like the little
Adventure.
crumbs, adventures out there. So you get fed a couple of crumbs. And then, of course, as we can segue into my hernia journey, I'm out of work for X amount of time. I'm at home, no friends. Let me pop on a live stream because I got nothing to do with my intestine hanging out. And I'm laying there and I'm starting to go onto a lot of the fan streams because there's nothing else to do. And I start to feel like the cracks like emerging from there. The first time was when they released like God knows how many, 20, 30, 5,000 promo pictures of posters of just hands. Rob, do you remember seeing that?
What was it?
It was promo pictures for the Rings of Power, and it was just like the torso of each character holding either a sword or like there's a ring or someone's holding peace signs.
It was like a couple years back.
This was this past winter
Oh, wow.
that they released like 20.
After the pandemic hit, like everything's a blur. Like whether things happen a year, 2
life
years,
isn't
3 years.
real. I'm convinced we all died in Y2K.
They had a
but
big
basically,
promo push for sure.
They had a big promo push this past winter, and it was just posters of people's hands. And that's when I knew.
Your Amazon package had the fucking
That's what
thing.
I was
Yes,
gonna say. I came
that's
home.
right.
I came home to an Amazon package, and it was like a full-blown box with art all over it for Lord of the Rings, and I was like, "Wow, like they're
Yes.
really
Feel
pushing
free
this
to
thing."
Throw it out and burn it. So when I zoom into the pictures of the costumes, half of them look like they were generic elven costumes from Party City, with the cheapest, fabric you've ever seen. So that was like the first time where I'm like, oh. Then as we trick along into the summer, there's pretty much like there's a little, trinkles here and there of information, and then Comic-Con just kind of like explodes this a couple of teaser trailers in a row that were not very good, and they kept reusing the same clips, and that's what started people thinking something must be wrong here. You're sitting on a dud if you're not releasing. If it's so good, if it's so bombastic, if it's so gorgeous, crazy, sexy, beautiful, then you should be letting people in on the scoop. But
Now, having said that, after watching it, do you feel that that statement that you felt at that time was accurate? Like, do you feel that it was like not visually stunning at times? And
I think there's a couple of CGI scenes. I'm not someone who shtickles on CGI. I can watch Titanic and be just as immersed in it with a man falling from the top of the stern into the water. And people like they get, I broke out of it. It broke me out of the scene. You can show me the shittiest Terminator from 1985 CGI and I'm still very much invested. So I don't have that brain. But that doesn't really mean much to me. If the writing blows, if the character development sucks, if you think your writing is so good that, do you want me to blow the ending of the first season, or does anyone care?
It's been out long enough, and whoever hasn't seen it isn't going to watch it.
We are a
Spoilers.
show. You say whatever you want.
Okay, spoiler alert, the token hot but not hot, but he's mysterious, man at the beginning of the show is the evil one the whole time. And you get to the end of the season and the payoff was called in the first 5 seconds of the show. So it's insulting, to the intelligence of the viewer.
So you didn't like it, is what you're saying? What's your opinion of the show? Did you enjoy it or you hated it?
I think I'm going to write it off, just like if you're a fan of Avatar The Last Airbender as the 2010 movie. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's not there.
Never happened.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Never happened.
Really?
It doesn't exist.
I thought you were enjoying it.
doesn't.
I thought that you
Chris,
were
retconning it.
No,
At
she was.
what point did I text you and you actually responded?
No, I heard Joe was saying Marilyn wants to talk about this, and I thought
Yeah, I
like you
wanna
really
talk
loved it,
about it.
but you want to talk
No,
about it
no,
because you
no,
hated
no.
it. See, I didn't realize.
Well, and it's interesting because for us, I feel like it's something that falls right in our wheelhouse. Like it's fantasy. It's all of these things. Rob has read the Lord of the Rings.
Well, Rob
trilogy.
loved it. I right? You enjoyed it, didn't
I
you?
enjoyed the show,
fucking
but like I
Rings of
said, it
Power
comes
was
from a
better
place
than
of
House of
ignorance
Dragon.
because I don't know the stories that the Silmarillion
You
contains.
said
because it
you
was too
enjoyed that
advanced.
show more than fucking House of Dragon.
I
You said
did.
that.
I did. I personally did, and
Wow.
it's my opinion.
Last week.
But
Wow. Okay. Do you want to talk about it, Rob? Do you have any feelings?
I enjoyed the shit out of the show. You know, I thought I loved the little the Hobbit people. They were fun. The Harfoots.
Yeah.
There were a lot,
Okay.
that little charm is really Tolkien to me, because
Okay.
it's like,
Okay.
yes, there's fucked up shit happening in the world, but it always like anchors you to like there is good in the world that's worth fighting for, and it kind of like shadows like that Samwise Gamgee quote in the Return of the King, and I feel that's what sets Tolkien apart from a lot of other high fantasy. It's all about the killing and spiteful people and horrible people clamoring for
Power.
power and shit. And Tolkien always took the time to say that's not all the world. That's not what the whole world is about. There are good places and good people and hardworking folks that of the land, and they have that charm, and that like you just can't help but feel like you're at home when you're with these characters and stuff. And I really resonated with that part. The fact that Gandalf coming down, and I always found the idea that wizards are actually celestial beings in the Lord of the Rings lore, and seeing Gandalf touch down and having you question, is this guy Sauron? Is that guy Sauron? I mean, it's one of those things where once you've watched it, it kind of removes some of the appeal of watching it for the first time, because you already know what's going to happen. And it's like, all right, well, now I'm jaded to this performance because I know that this is all bullshit. But watching it with my dad was an invaluable experience, because my dad read The Lord of the Rings back in the 70s. I read his copy of the books. It was this gold foil box set that had The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And when I was in middle school, we had to pick some stories to read. I was always intrigued by that box set, and I decided to start reading them back then. And I remember the feelings that I had when I was reading those books, and I was amazed at the world that he had created. And it was like maybe like a few weeks after I had finished The Return of the King, they announced that Peter Jackson was making Lord of the Rings movies. And I was like, what are the
Wow.
chances that these books that have been in my basement for 30 years at the time and smelled like my basement with yellowed pages and all this shit were becoming movies like right after I decided to read them? And I thought they did a great job with the movies, and I enjoyed them. I mean, if you ask my Uncle Anthony, God rest his soul, he was like, I don't get it. All they do is walk around.
My parents say. Yeah, they say the same shit.
Kevin Smith, baby. Even
the fucking trees walked
in that movie. Yeah. I was gonna say Kevin Smith kind of skewed my opinion on Lord of the Rings just from the Clerks 2 rants.
But it's great in its own right, and I love the books. The Silmarillion was a tough read because it's literally like reading a textbook, and that's really what they're basing the Rings of Power stories on. How the Rings of Power were forged. What's that?
They only owned the appendices after the Return of the King. They don't own the Silmarillion. And if they wanted any piece of that book, they'd have to apply to the Tolkien estate on a case-by-case basis. So there are fragments of the show that look like they should be from the Silmarillion, but I can't legally confirm that because no one actually knows. So to me, I know you're looking at it and being like, wow, what a piece of film. About the book, but to be honest, it's actually, to me, $60 million an episode fan fiction, and like knowing that,
isn't it all? And if it's not from Tolkien himself, it's all fan fiction.
Correct, which is fair, but I mean, I think the only thing they had actual rights to were like the names, a map with names of places and names of characters, and then the rest just got like. Make it up. See what you want.
Well, they took liberties and stuff, like the whole Sauron coming from the Southlands and all that shit was all made up. Like his interaction with Galadriel on the sea is completely made up. But it still tells a good story to me. I don't know.
Loop.
Okay.
That's interesting. I think it's funny that
you're allowed to enjoy fan fiction even if it doesn't match your shit. I enjoy the Marvel movies with a grain of salt because none of that shit's the same as the comics. None of it.
Sure. Okay.
But I still enjoy those movies. I'm still gonna go see Wakanda Forever. It's not exactly the Black Panther comic, obviously, because Chadwick Boseman died, so it's not gonna be T'Challa. Even.
We just watched George Martin last week. Talk about acceptable changes that sometimes you have to, capitulate to. And in his case, he brought up, because he said there's acceptable and there's unacceptable. So the example he used was, a lot of people bring up, why isn't the throne 15 feet tall and so on and so forth out of the books? Because in the books, it's this large, almost story throne. And he said, well, first, the sound stage was about 12 feet tall, so you couldn't fit it in there. And there's a budget. And, there's a practicality to the compromise that you have to make as a writer of these, source materials and when you're world building. But then he also said there is unacceptable changes. So I'm sure
That was the whole
at
story.
a lot of this shit and go like, nah, this isn't mine at all. I didn't intend for any of this to be like this. So I think for Marilyn, it's like being what you seem to be as a hardcore fan, a loyalist to the Tolkien estate, as you said. And it's interesting that Amazon was able to pick this up because they did something similar, or they were able to purchase something that I feel is similar, which is the James Bond series, because it's
Amazon owns James Bond now.
They
Amazon
own
owns James
MGM.
Bond. So, but James Bond is similar, where there's an estate that oversees all of the James Bond movies. Like there's certain things they allow, don't allow.
Ian
and
Fleming.
It still goes. Yeah. So exactly.
And
Ian
my
Fleming's
dad's
family,
very pissed off about the last James Bond movie.
Yeah. So they're making.
Very
They're
pissed
making.
off.
So it looks like
most people
Amazon
are.
has weird.
Pierce
deals
Brosnan was the
with-
best James Bond.
That's bullshit.
Amazon has these deals with these properties that, like, somehow it allows
than
the
Sean
estate to
Connery?
keep the
Are you
rights,
fucking
but it
serious?
allows them to make this like fan fiction-y bullshit, which
Correct.
I don't know if it's going to help Amazon at all. I don't know
Well,
if you.
You're looking
Well-
in the comments, Chris. Let's go to the comments.
I can't
real
hear
quick.
Joe fucking talking. about
Joe, yeah,
crap.
you're a little low there, but
What
I heard him
do you
say, he said go to the comments. So just want to acknowledge Tricky Ricky is in the house, as we knew we could depend on him to be Exacta TV. Appreciate you. Sean Young,
Holy
is that
shit.
Sean
Is that
Young?
the Sean
Is that
Young?
the Sean? I mean, I honestly know like 3 Sean Youngs. It's actually a very common name
Oh,
combination.
This has to
but
be. This has to be.
I think it's the number one.
yeah,
I think
What's
he should,
happening,
He's the man.
He should reveal himself.
yeah. Happy to, which one are you?
Man. Thanks for joining us. When's your startups? Yeah, when's your startup? When's your
Mine has
Jesus,
space.
When's your stand-up start?
Doing stand up, Marilyn? On
You're
the
asking
spot?
me or you're asking Sean Young?
That's
Oh,
what
he's
Sean wants to
asking
know.
me.
Sean wants to know.
Sean's
when does
asking
your
you.
stand-up
Okay,
start?
so we know
Oh, I
it's
didn't
that
even see
Sean
that.
Young.
Yes.
Okay, when you know what, Sean, when I'm playing at whatever venue is big for comedians, I will give you a ticket in the front row so I can roast your ass. How's that?
Do you want to
can
be a
sit in
stand-up?
front row. Do I want to be?
Are you like? Would you? I mean, I've always secretly. That's like one of my. I always kind of wanted to be a stand-up comedian.
You got,
honestly.
oh,
Imagine that,
Stand-up
Rob.
comedian.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but I don't want to.
Stand-up comedians are the modern day.
Stand up comedian.
I love it. It says he said it is the Sean Young.
Is
Good.
the
Oh,
Happy to be here.
all
See,
capital.
Marilyn, it
D.
took you being here for Sean to tune into the show.
you see, I
Look at that,
brought
you're
you
bringing in
another
viewers.
viewer.
That's it.
Yeah,
You're
ratings.
welcome.
Maryland
Another
equals
white
ratings.
man.
I've always wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but it takes a lot of
Okay.
gumption to do that. You gotta. So
It does.
are you planning for that?
I have done 2 open mics in my life. It was beginning of 2019, and then the second one I did in the summer of 2019 culminated in a leg infection,
Oh.
which I had to receive heavy antibiotics for. So if you'd like that story, we could tell it. But when
Of course.
We'll
By
get
the
into
time-
that. We'll get into your
Okay.
hernia. We're gonna get
And
into
then
all
after-
kinds of.
Well, after that show, before I realized my leg was infected, I drank an entire bottle of rosé and cried about how I'm not cut out for the business. And then I turned around and worked 2 jobs the very next day and was like, this is life. This is living. But by the time that I decided that I wanted to maybe try it again, it was already the beginning of 2020, and here we are today. So
Marilyn- time
Marilyn,
again to stand up.
Ronnie has joined the show. He says he loves you and misses you.
Hey, Ronnie, baby.
Oh, there he is. The
Thank
man.
Thank you for joining us.
From the high hills of Hollywood,
California.
Ronnie.
Timo.
Hollywood
California.
Ron.
Silicon Valley. Direct.
He's Silicon
so
Ronnie.
much.
I see Marilyn as like a really. I see people on TikTok, and I fucking swear when I watch some of these people, I'm like, oh, this is Marilyn. If Marilyn just would express what she expresses on the daily, probably just to herself.
No,
into
she
her
doesn't
phone's
do it just to
camera.
herself. Trust me. She's always expressing openly for
So-
others. You just need to capture it on camera.
Goddamn mirror. You're telling me, okay, you know what?
You gotta be
My
like
thing
Long
is-
Island gal or some shit, and do like the whole fucking polka dot. You got that retro.
Polka
Long
dot.
Island.
Yeah, you got that retro.
We're gonna have you come out to
Oh,
to
how
Dusty
fun.
Roads songs with the
That's
Dusty Roads
mean.
polka dots.
America.
I mean, if it makes me money and I get desperate, that's always my thing.
Desperate.
Where
What?
It's just
How can we get?
We're all
For me-
desperate
Doesn't
already.
get any desperate than this.
Well, that's true, but I always felt, I don't know, it's like if I ever get there, I'm going to do it very begrudgingly and I'm going to hate it all the way to
Sounds
the
like
top.
someone we
Like,
know. I swear to God, I think there's someone in this
Is
room.
is it down?
Right. I don't know where
am,
he
and
is
where
on the
is-
thing. Where is he on the?
We're very
He's
similar
beneath
in
you,
that
and
way.
he's in the
This one
bottom
is
right of the
below me.
Brady Bunch
He's
box.
below me. He's right down here.
You're jealous. Look at that.
Reluctance.
Wait, so why?
Maybe we'll do like the Break Room podcast comedy show. Here we go.
What appeals
Like,
to you,
carry your ass on stage? What the hell you got to bring to the table?
Marilyn?
I
Why
wanna
do
do a
you
live
want to be a stand-up art? Like, what is it that appeals to you about it?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Talking to Rob?
No, you.
Me?
Rob doesn't want to do stand-up.
You like stand-up. I don't like stand-up.
I
only
don't.
do sketch comedy.
I hate people. I hate being around people.
So do
I don't
comedians.
like.
All comedians.
Which
Every comedian I've ever heard of.
Misanthropes, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what I heard. Vin, actually, you told me years ago. I don't think you remember this. We were getting out of work in the parking lot, and you were like,
Oh.
"Why aren't you a comedian?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I'm depressed. I don't want to do anything." And he's like, "All comedians are depressed." And I've
Yeah.
literally remembered that. So thank you
True.
for.
Lock that one away.
In my memoir, I'm gonna write your name and that you told me that I fit the bill. That
I'll
and
read
bartending. I've been told I should be a bartender, but
What if Amazon bought your
Yeah,
memoir
then you
and
have to
tried
be
to make a
people's
TV
fucking
show out of your
therapist for
memoir?
not therapy
absolutely
money.
not. Absolutely, I will direct
Enough for
my
a
own
billion
memoir
fucking
from the
dollars.
grave. Yeah, I will direct my own memoir from the grave. Thank you very much. It's art, not content. So
I look at
Well, this
comedy,
is-
like stand-up comedy, like philosophy. Like sometimes when you watch a stand-up comedy show, they really are like modern day philosophers. They're standing there delivering a soliloquy on a microphone, and it's always like what makes it so funny is that they're so right. It's like their observations, and it's true, yeah, and that's why it's funny. They really are like modern day philosophers when you think about it. None of them would call themselves that, but I mean, especially now, like if you watch Dave Chappelle, his last
Who's
Netflix
that?
stand up was like a fucking an orator. I don't know what you would call it. It was like an orator. You know what I mean? Like a lecture of sorts.
Yeah,
You
you can
disagree?
use-
You don't think that they're kind of
Absolutely.
I
mean,
agree.
George
I
Carlin
agree.
was everything like that. I actually got to see him live. I turned 21. I went to Vegas. I saw George Carlin live at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Vegas.
Sick.
By far the best stand-up show that I've ever seen. I've seen Dane Cook. I've seen Sebastian Maniscalco. I've seen Chris Rock. Stand-up comedy is not easy. Very, very. I mean, anything that you think has been done has probably been done already. So to be original and to be innovative and really capture an audience is difficult because whatever has been talked about already is probably 10 times over. So it's not.
You're right.
It's oversaturated right now, to be honest with you.
You got to be a great storyteller to be a good comedian, or at least in my. I think Maniscalco was one of those. Dane Cook was one of those. Like you can
Yeah,
sell those
Maniscalco I
things.
saw multiple times.
They tell you their
Maniscalco
stories.
is very physical. He tells a
Yeah.
physical
He's
story with
Italian.
his hands, with his, you know.
The good have company.
He's
Pet
perfectly.
with Pentangeli's over here. We're sitting here now.
Do you see yourself?
At the order and
disgusting.
Uber.
You see how you people go out? You dress like that, and you go out like that. PJs in the afternoon.
I'm
in the
partial
middle
to
of the
Bill
supermarket.
Burr. He's my
Oh,
favorite.
I mean, he's a master.
Bill Burr is funny too. He tells it how it is.
Do you-
He's in
We
Star
gotta,
Wars now.
kick Marilyn and Rob in the ass and motivate them. Give them some antidepressants and just get them on stage and get them doing it.
you can't be on antidepressants if you take the stage, baby. That ain't your
You
show.
have to
You gotta
be
keep
depressed.
them depressed.
Because guess what?
You have to. The prerequisite of being a comedian is you have to die at least like that much.
Yeah.
You
You're
have
laughing
to.
at a symptom of mental illness.
There's
That's what-
there's a level of
to me,
mental
that's what
illness
comedy
that's
is.
required to be funny. It's like just enough trauma
Yeah.
to be funny.
Exactly.
You're
the
expressing
monetization of
things
mental
that-
illness.
you're expressing things that people feel on a daily basis, and that's why they relate, and that's why they laugh. They don't laugh to laugh at something. They usually laugh because they see themselves in it. So whatever the joke is, whatever the story is, they're laughing because they're picturing their own experience while you're telling this joke. And if you're a good storyteller and you're laying it out clear, that is what's going to get
You
the
guys
best
can tell
laugh.
stories about working at a retail store for 20 years part-time. So
Sure.
if you combine
No, but-
together to work a full-time schedule, you can talk about that. And I think that's how many people.
Everybody
millions
can
of
relate
people
to a
around the
shitty
world talk
fucking
about
job.
retail. Shitty
Okay.
fucking job, retail store.
Oh no. Did it freeze?
It's very taxing.
Yep.
And who says that you deserve it, Chris Sweet? You want to throw me up on a stage and yell "Dance Monkey Dance"? Give me some fucking cymbals and make you laugh. You think
I'm
Better way to
encouraging,
make a
not
joke out
not
of my-
demanding. It's
Do
encouragement.
I amuse you?
See
Do
that?
I make you laugh?
You're so
My-
paranoid that
I'm
you're
not
taking
paranoid.
my encouragement as a demand for entertainment.
Offended.
Yeah.
My thing is, and maybe Rob can agree that because we have such stunning personalities and people really gravitate towards us. But
That's
my
because I'm
thing,
fat. I have my own gravitational field.
it's when people come up when they introduce me to like their friends or somebody new in the mix, whoever the fuck, and they're like, Marilyn is so funny. She's literally the funniest person.
And then
I'm
it's
supposed
like,
to sit
tell me
there
a
and be
joke.
Like,
Like, I'm not funny. I'm mean.
That's not great.
yeah, exactly. I'm just
Not
trying to exist. I'm trying to exist and pay my medical
Yeah.
bills, and just when you're around me, you might have the fallout of toxic fumes that spill out of my mouth. But other than that, it's not. I'm not
I think
here to,
people are
like,
so
kick
pent
around.
up and bound and
Yes.
closed mouth that when they meet somebody like us that's just not afraid to talk about how it really is, they can't
Yes.
help but laugh because it's like, I'm thinking
Yeah.
this, but this is the person that's like my filter right now. Like,
Exactly. So it's not
they're,
necessarily. I'm
they're
not.
championing the people that are eating
Yeah.
shit for a living and
Yeah.
keeping a closed mouth about it.
Like, do I like to make people laugh? It's not about you. It's not about. I'm not thinking about you at all. I'm thinking about me trying to get through the day and entertain myself just enough where I convince myself that we're having a good time.
Like, I'm the
that's
same,
what it
but with
is.
extra steps.
And that's
like,
how you
I
open
hate
up the show.
myself,
That's the
so
opening
I make
joke
people
right there.
laugh. So this way, I like empath the happiness that I create.
Yeah, you open up
Okay.
your show, you get on stage, you tell everybody, listen, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to create just enough joy in my own life to pretend everything's okay. And the whole fucking crowd's going to laugh.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to write that down. I do have
It's number one.
the titles. If I were to ever do 2 comedy shows, I have 2 titles, and I have a title of my memoir already in my notes app on my phone.
Let
and
me
my
hear the
book.
titles. I gotta
Absolutely
hear this.
not. You're gonna have to. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't,
No,
it
no.
doesn't. This
No,
is
I
how
mean,
it
that's-
happens.
That's
There's no
false
secret
advertising.
reviews
You
here.
can't tease.
Yeah.
So,
Give us
yeah,
this
do
the
it.
the
No, you're not
podcast
getting-
This is a
official.
spoiler show. This is yeah.
Give
We're
us
not
the
smart
scoop.
enough to know.
Podcast name. So like so many times, I
Neither
can
do we.
if I had
Everything's been
$1
taken.
If I had $1 every
Marilyn
time a
Francis
young man
podcast.
came
Not the bare minimum.
But shut up. If I had $1 every time a young man came up to me and said he wants to be my manager and I should do a podcast, I've had
Oh,
several
God.
dollars to throw towards my bills.
Oh,
Yeah.
But I have
Oh.
never actually thought about doing a podcast myself because to me it's just talking into the ether, and
Very
who the hell
si-
would ever want to listen to that? But yet here I
be
am.
surprised.
Tricky Ricky.
There you are.
Tricky Ricky wants to hear. He's here for us.
Ricky
Ricky
wants to hear
cares.
it.
Now Sean
And
Young's here.
I don't know. Apparently Sean Young, he wants to hear. He's
Listen,
my
there's
biggest
people
fan.
out there that want to hear what you have to say. There's
If
If
people
there
that
are people that want to hear
I
what
did-
I have to say, there's people that want to hear what anybody has to say.
I found
didn't
people.
realize that-
I found people really just enjoy listening to my misfortune, and if I just tell people
Wow,
about how horrible something is that happened to me, they're laughing, and it's just really funny
We're
to them.
laughing At you. We're
Yes,
not
yes, they're
the
laughing at
joke
me,
of it.
but that's kind of,
That's
I
how
guess.
this works.
It's
Yes.
all about the
You're making it
delivery,
about
too.
No, no,
you know?
listen,
Always laughing
the
at
number
Chris.
one
Chris says
source-
some fucking crazy shit.
The number
Chris
one
just
how many
source.
fucking bottles of Baja Blast you have empty on your behind you, Chris? Jesus
I
Christ.
threw them all out
my
before the
God.
show. No, I remember
Well,
hearing
how
somewhere.
many were there? How many?
There was only one. I remember
Oh, we
hearing
got
somewhere.
Courtney in the chat.
Co-
We
oh my
have
God,
basically
she's
everyone
here.
who left
Amazing.
our
What's
store.
up?
Yeah, Courtney.
Everyone who left our store.
Tricky
Courtney,
Ricky's the
is
man.
that you? Thank
No.
you for coming.
It's
I
a-
feel trapped.
I remember
It's a
reading
2000
somewhere that
she's
the
like in the
number
middle
one
of
source of
that.
comedy is the misfortune
no
of
escape.
others. Fun fact.
See what you
This
think.
is
You
like-
think you bring. See, this is the problem. So
Oh,
it's like
okay,
I'm
the
not saying
problem.
that Rob and I are like comedians, but I'm saying that maybe one day we can morph and mold and be those
One
kind
day?
of things. I don't
Fuck,
know.
You guys better start.
Some
Well-
people consider me a comedian already. I don't know.
Well, you are. I'm not saying that you are, but with
I'm a
someone
bullshit
like
artist. I can bullshit my way through
Oh,
anything.
well,
Chris comes into work and goes, I had a migraine for 12 hours last night. There was a huge spider cricket in my room. I didn't sleep one wink all night. And that's literally like, you think you're bringing comedy to the people, but we're actually just laughing at you because you annoy everybody in a 10-mile radius.
Not everybody.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you
you
for
know,
coming
me.
on to my show.
You
I'm
know,
glad I
it's
set
me.
all this up for you to just publicly
did you hear
ostracize me
Chris.
in front of all of my friends and family.
You better watch out, Chris.
I-
has control of the
after
camera.
I encouraged you, after I encouraged you and all of
I had
that.
a discussion. I am here as a consultant to tell you what
No,
to
I am
do
here
on-
as the
on your
pincushion.
podcast.
I'm the human
You're the
pincushion. Just put the
Okay,
daggers,
so it's about you
put
again,
another
to make it
dagger
right.
in the chest.
Okay.
Now
Oh, Chris.
Joe has another.
Joe's ready with a
Patriot.
fucking knife for me too. Joe
There's
was.
3
Okay.
people in the chat already saying that Chris Sweet annoys them. So I mean, I
Oh,
don't
wow.
know,
There you go.
but he
Oof,
is the
not
best
sweet
looking
enough.
person in the
There you
chat
go.
I
room,
might have
so I
brought
don't know.
those
I'm,
three
I'm
people.
glad I arranged this
It was,
for us.
it was one person.
Thank
Classic
you.
Joe's exaggeration. Every
Marilyn,
time Joe says
According to
three,
Joe,
that
I'm
means one.
120 pounds and I'm fucking 5'3" and fucking.
We learned all these things over the last year. I feel like we're in a weird.
I have
brain
tiny
fuzz
hands.
situation with this. Tiny
You
little.
do have baby
Oh
hands.
no.
Like a baby hands. That wasn't me.
And then I got
Yes, what,
fucking
him?
mitts. I mean,
That's
look at
not
that.
true.
It's
That
like
wasn't me.
fucking
That's
Andre
not true.
hands.
I have
Little
dated
Yeah, but he's a
baby
big
hands.
dude and he has
Woman.
baby hands. It looks disproportionate. Like you're at least symmetrical to your height.
Chris.
You still
Chris
have small hands. Like a, you know.
Thank
So,
you.
Chris says.
Thank you.
Thank
Marilyn, let me
you.
hear the
Thank you.
critique of the show.
Keep the knives coming.
Is
You
Joe
see?
wearing a shirt that says?
You put a knife in Chris and you laugh. I charge you 5 cents.
I want you to critique. I want to hear the critique of the Chris Sweet podcast.
All right,
Let
hold
me
on.
hear this.
Wait. I'm not listening.
What is this? What
Anyway.
fucking you guys bring me on the air to sack me live? You see, that's what I'm telling you. The human pincushion. I should charge you a nickel. You could insult me for a nickel. I'd be a
This
millionaire.
whole show has been mispositioned to me. I told I was going to come on and roast Amazon. Then it became an intervention for me and Rob to become stand-up comedians to entertain everybody. For
And then
free.
you lashed
And now
out at
it's
me
a-
for
it's a roast
encouraging
and-
you.
okay. Well, you're not encouraging, please.
I am I would love to see you on the stage.
Okay, you know what?
You
can
should be
sit
there.
next to Sean. I will reserve a front row.
Yeah.
For the Break Room podcast.
We'll bring the
questions.
tomatoes.
Sean has
Bring the
made
tomatoes.
his.
Thank you.
has said-
Bring the-
Wait, he did lay claim to being the inspiration. Never would have happened
When-
without him.
Okay, you know what? When I said before, if I had $1 for every time a young man came up to me and said he wanted to A, be my manager, and B, said I had the
Yeah.
chops, and C,
get the
wanted to do a
chops.
podcast with
Yeah.
me, I'd have several dollars, okay, to fill up my gas tank and drive to my job. So thank you so much,
Mari-
Sean. I'm sure you can tell the press in 20 years that it was all you, and you inspired it all. You are why I am. It's not me.
Stephanie doesn't want to hear Joe's voice, and Mari says, "Joe, you got to fix your mic."
Oh,
Thanks,
hey,
guys. Welcome to the show.
Joe, your mic. You got to get some shit
Welcome.
together. Put the other fucking AirPod in or something.
What else do we have to
It's all
air
on
out?
my mic.
Apparently, we're airing out our podcast
I'm
in front
okay
of our
with this.
It's
entire
a Festivus,
coworkers.
apparently.
I'm
Airing
gonna-
grievances.
I have
There you
more.
I'm hemorrhaging love over here.
She's,
That's all I got to
she's
give.
pouring at the tequila. So listen, we
Yeah.
got
Please
It's
another
getting
go.
progressively. You were
another
supposed.
hour. of
You were
this.
supposed to fight the patriarchy, not join it. Bring balance to the force.
She doesn't watch Star Wars.
Okay.
Damn.
What?
Now we got to be fit.
Yeah,
for
no.
that one.
What?
Shot over her.
All right.
You
All
never
right, so
seen
wait.
Star Wars?
So we're off the rails, but that's fine. But I still have like a couple more questions about this Power of Rings of Power
Yes,
deal
Power
here.
of the Ring.
So we haven't watched this.
Did
yet.
you-
To a burning
So-
ring of power.
What do you want me to say? My two, like more of my
No,
two cents.
but you're
Like,
in touch. You're in touch with the community there. You observe. You watch.
I would
these
say you're
streams.
more
So-
knowledgeable about the Lord of the Rings than I am because.
I
you've
mean,
read
I
more
wouldn't
into
say
it.
from a book perspective, but because I like to be a stalker of fandom. I don't like to participate in fandom. I like to be the weirdo in the corner, just like seeing what's going on. And I mean, hell, if we're not in the middle of like a quote war for fandom, I don't know what else we're in right now.
I guess that's the difference for me is that I just don't give a
Yeah.
fuck what other people think about things. I just
Okay,
give
that's
them my
fine.
own experience, and I
Yeah.
go and see
best
stuff
way
and
to
form
live
my
your
own
life.
opinions and shit. And like,
Yeah.
that's why I was able to enjoy that show because I didn't listen to what other people have to say. I don't watch trailers. I don't read ads. I even like the latest God of War game that's going to come out on the 9th. I can't wait for that game. I've been a fan of God of War since I played the demo disc back on the PlayStation 2. And I haven't watched any of the trailers because I want that true blue like first
I'm
experience
avoiding a
with
lot
it
of
to be
shit.
like rock my socks off, and that's how I approach all the stuff that I watch. Even like the
War
movie I went to
on
go see today. I went to go see the One Piece movie Red, and that's my favorite anime. And like I didn't watch any trailers or anything. I had no preconceived notions as to what the story was going to be about, and I enjoyed it tremendously.
Well, speaking of anime, not to bring it back, but since we've obviously had Rings of Power, are you aware that there's an anime film getting produced, not by Amazon, but it is going to be called War of the Rohirrim, and it's a one-shot Lord of the Rings universe. I hate to say universe with regard to this legendarium, but it's going to be a one-shot film that's going to come out in 2024, and I think we're in the middle of. I don't want to say it's like the Sony Spider-Man legal issues, but Warner Brothers, there was a tweet that just came out yesterday, Fandom tweeted it, saying, we still have rights to make Lord of the Rings films. So you're about to see, I think we're in this like post-creative hellscape where we're just going to see multiple corporations fight over properties and make their own versions of each. And
I think the
that's
problem
where
is
we
that
are.
we've fallen
God
into
forbid they
this.
create something, but yeah, buy up everything and fuck it up. That's
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing. We've fallen into
classic
this, for
tried
lack
and
of a better
true
term,
corporate move.
quagmire, where people
Yeah.
can't come up with these new ideas, so they're trying to cash in on that nostalgia factor that all the millennials seem to suffer from. And it's like, oh, well, this thing from your childhood and that thing from your childhood, and they know that it sells because they don't need to make new ideas. They just need to capitalize on the old
Now
one.
look at Joe's shelf. I mean,
Sure.
That's exactly
behind
it.
me.
Merchandise.
I mean, look at my wall. I got all my
It's 'cause
fucking
of you
original
guys, though,
action
to be honest.
figures
I
up here.
fucking
You know?
never
Yeah.
bought a lot of this
Got my
shit.
babies.
Oh, the gauntlet of them.
There you go.
And
yeah.
the
Let
nostalgia
me
sells.
buy my
Artist.
kid that I had when I was a kid because I'm an adult and I make an income and I can buy it all. Smart.
That's true. I love that idea though, Marilyn, because I'm a big advocate for like animated storytelling,
Me too,
especially of
yeah.
like these things that just can't be scaled properly with a set. To what George Martin said about the limitations, there's no limitations in animation and anime, and that's where you could get like I feel like Game of Thrones should go that way. They should start telling some of these stories through the alternate medium. There's a big audience for it. The CEO of Disney's a fucking loser idiot because saying that animated films are not for adults is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. And when you're the
Yeah.
CEO of Disney, to say that out
Yeah.
loud into a microphone just seems so fucking stupid that you just don't deserve the job and they should fucking take it away from him. But yeah, I want to see more of that. I loved Marvel getting into it. That was great. I just finished the Star Wars Tale of the Jedi. Those were awesome because those are little
Those
like
were excellent.
vignettes of stories we knew a little bit about and they got to expand on them. Like what was a good one? Qui-Gon Jinn being a Padawan to Dooku, we knew that. You knew in the lore, but you never saw it. So I just love Lord of the Rings. I'd probably be more likely to watch the Lord of the Rings anime than I would the actual show.
And it does one up like the amount of articles that I've read over the past 2 or 3 months, videos made by like fans, but they're like in support of the show, whatever. It's always like a comparison. It's always a one up of now we call it the Jackson films. I never called it the Jackson films, baby. It was only the films. It's only called Lord of the Rings. Like that's, and I'm sorry to be like such a nerd about it. But I was brought on. I remember I was sitting in my living room. Remember the seat on the damn couch I was sitting in. My parents put it on. It was on Stars because we had cable. We were living the high life by then. And I'm sitting there and I watch, ironically, the orc that I had cosplayed. That was the first character that I had seen. We had started Fellowship of the Ring so late. And I remember it so vividly. I don't even like fantasy. I don't like fantasy as a genre. To me, it's all like Lady Tremaine and the House of the Dragon Lords. Like it just goes right over my head. But there was something about these films that was so captivating. from a visual perspective, the costuming, the practical effects, not the CGI. It's just gorgeous. It just, such a tapestry of, storytelling, but whatever. To me, I don't call them the Jackson films. They're just the definitive film. I know that's kind of controversial depending on who you speak to, but they are the definitive adaptation. So 20 years from now, when we're all about going back and, massacring things that we've already done in the past because we think we can do it better, that's kind of where I think we are. We're not in the artistic phase of film. We're in the content development film phase, because we live in a TikTok time period where it needs to be 3 reels a day, 3 to 4. And for what purpose? I don't know. Not to stand on my little high horse.
People are lucky to get 3 to 4 a month from me.
Yeah, but like, if you wanna tickle the algorithm, you got to have 3 to 4 a day. And but what are you really saying? I don't know. I'm not really sure where I'm going with this, but basically,
No, I hear you.
I would rather have animated. I would rather have them bring the Rankin Bass, Rankin.
I
Bass
love those. I was going to say it really
motion.
lends itself to animation, because Rankin Bass
Yes,
did put out a couple of good.
sure. And you're
So
not
there was the
competing.
original Hobbit story that was told
Yes.
in an animated form,
Mhm.
and then they did the Lord of the Rings. They kind of combined all 3 books into like one Lord of the Rings story,
Yeah.
and they used a technology called rotoscope, where they would take like filmed people and like paint over it and make it look like animation. And they use that a lot for like some of the orcs scenes in the Nazgul, and it was actually a really good cartoon. And I did grow up with that. I had the bed sheets. I still got them floating around somewhere. I have the pillowcase with the Fellowship on it and stuff. I have the action figures somewhere. I don't even know where they are right now. I think I have
Usually those
all-
things are all full circle too,
There
like
you go.
technologies, cutting edge technologies fall by the wayside.
That's an original Gollum figure.
Oh,
That's from
hey,
the
nobody.
animated movie.
Rob has the best shit in arm's reach.
my
Like
God.
everything is, there's just so much shit
There's
wherever
just-
he
The
is.
Emporium.
Yeah, the Emporium. There definitely. Oh, this
Wow.
original here. Check this out. Yeah, this is one of 10. This doesn't
Yeah, I gotta
exist.
find my Gandalf. I have an
It's
original.
worth $10,000, but it sits on my shelf, Dusty.
Yep, everything's dusty. It's fucked. Dusty roads
It's a
everywhere.
sin.
It's a
Well, that's
sin.
actually-
It's but
that's
my plan is
doing
to clean out my mom's old curio with all her precious moments, because my dad and I don't really give a shit
Oh,
about
man.
precious moments. I want to put all my statues in there. Be
So, all right,
nice.
let's
Mary,
get
as
down
we
to the
wrap
nitty-gritty.
As we wrap up the talk about Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, I'm
Get
just
started,
curious from your
baby.
perspective. Yeah, how do you rank the movies? You want to call them the Jackson 5, Jackson 3?
The Jackson 3.
Like, give me the
the
yeah,
Jackson 6, I
so-
guess.
Honestly, I
give me
like
a
the Rings
ranking.
of Power show better than the Hobbit movies. 'Cause I
Oh,
wasn't a big fan of the
Okay,
Hobbit
okay.
movies. I felt like that was a big disappointment, those movies, because I honestly, when I read the books, The Hobbit was my favorite story of the stories that I had read
Okay.
in middle school.
Rob now enters to Marilyn. That's his new name.
To me, I mean, on the contraire, I mean, I think that Rings of Power makes the Hobbit movies look like it's freaking Shakespeare at this point, the highest art you can achieve. Kind of the way I've heard Lord of the Rings fan liken it to the Star Wars episode 1 to 3,
The
like how
shit.
everyone hated it, but now they like it now because of what has come after.
Oh, because
Like that-
there's a worse pile of shit. Yeah.
Yes, there's something worse that came along, so it's like this isn't
Well,
too bad after all,
at the-
that kind of thing.
At the core of that, though, that's because this stuff is made for kids, and when you're a kid, you don't have this objective criticism to make. So when you grow up with it, and it becomes the thing that was in your childhood, it's your nostalgia, and it has its own effect on them.
You're willing
So
to
that's-
overlook
a
certain
lot of this
things.
shit, as much as it's not, as much as it's made for the existing fan base, they want to capture all these little fucking kids because there's more little kids than there are us. And that's, that's the goal, whether it's Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, you name it. They're looking for children. And those kids, when they grew up with those prequels, like, it was around the time I was a kid, I didn't know what to not like. You know what I mean? I really had no fucking idea. I knew the original trilogy. I had watched it on tape. We watched it in theaters. I loved it. And as long as it's in the same universe, and I think to what Rob experiences, he's got a lot of nostalgia tied into it. And when you're in the universe, it's why I like Game of Thrones. It's why I like House of the Dragon. You're just in that universe. It feels like you're there. And it's enjoyable for whatever reasons you attribute to it. But I think that content machine is just going to keep going, though. No doubt. They're just going to keep.
They're definitely
going to
come out with another season of the shit, love it or hate it.
They're going to remake all the movies. They're going to do them all over again. Watch when they remake the original Star Wars trilogy and everyone implodes.
I like the actor that played Elrond.
You better hope.
Weaving?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you mean the new one.
In the new one.
Oh, okay.
And what's funny is he ties a bridge between Game of Thrones and Rings of Power because he played a young Ned Stark in the Tower of Joy scene. No, now it ends.
Yeah, it ends.
So he plays Elrond.
So he's the second. So wait, you're telling me that both Ned Starks are in Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Old and young Ned Stark. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, technically.
One does simply not just be Ned Stark.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the girl that plays Galadriel. I think she does a good job.
Is she the elf that?
Yeah, Galadriel.
I gotta watch this stuff, man.
All will
You know what I wanna
love
do?
me and despair.
Before this ends, I want to watch Marilyn and Chris argue about which is better, Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings.
Before we do that, can we find common ground first, Marilyn?
Let's.
Because I'd
Fine,
rather
Chris.
do that than
Oh.
get sandbagged, because I know Joe will start fucking ganging up with you, you fucking cocksucker over there. But anyway, no, let's find some common ground. And
I'm so glad I came tonight.
we
guys.
both
I'm really
enjoyed The Crown, right?
Hey, listen.
Oh,
We love
yes,
having
we
you.
do.
We both enjoyed
actually
The
do
Crown.
Both enjoyed The Crown. I'm very excited for the next season. Should be next week, I believe.
There's-
Wednesday.
Really?
Where's
Isn't
the
it the
crown?
9th?
Where's
The
the
8th and the 9th?
Holy shit, really? Wait,
I'm
are
gonna
you
go-
serious?
I'm gonna go take
No,
a
I'm
piss
being
while you talk
serious.
about
It
the
should-
Crown.
It's up
Hey,
like
never
next
change.
week.
Listen, what I'll say about The Crown,
What is that? Is that a show?
it's about
Crown.
Marilyn, you'll do it better justice than I could do explaining The Crown, but I want to just mention that the guy who plays Damon, Matt Smith, plays Prince Philip, the late Prince Philip, R.I.P., right? Always all due respect.
Eh.
Yeah. Well, Marilyn respects him.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
So-
Forgive me, I can't stand Matt
yeah, I
Smith.
mean,
I'm
Marilyn,
sorry.
tell him what The Crown is, if you
The
could.
Crown is a loose interpretation of Queen Elizabeth's life, and so far I think we're going into season 5.
Is it
Every
5 already?
2 seasons they recast. So the first 2 seasons, Prince Philip was played by Matt Smith, and then he's played by Tobias.
He's played by the guy who plays Catelyn's brother in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Edmure
No
Tully.
shit.
He's played by
And
the
so
guy who
he-
plays
Rome?
Edmure Tully, and the guy from Rome. Yeah, he plays Brutus in Rome, and he's
so
Prince.
as-
Dude, Brute.
Yeah.
As we age through the Queen's life, everyone is recasted, and they have never missed a beat. I don't think once. And I know people they don't, hire a cast based off of a look, because to be honest,
Some of them,
character does-
Princess
Some of them
Anne.
do.
Princess Anne kind of looks.
sure. But when they cast John Lithgow as Winston Churchill, I'm like,
But he did a
what?
good job, though. I was
And
all right
he
with that.
ended up
Not-
I was blown away.
He did a good
I'm,
job.
Not British, obviously, but none of us are. But to have him portray the most famous Briton of all time, and do such a killer job of it, I was like, oh my god, they really know what they're doing. And I'm excited for the next season. I know it's going to get a little controversial because we're dipping deeper into the Diana narrative, and it's not going to be
Well,
pleasant.
now that she's dead, it's going to be a little easier to tell that story.
I guess so, but
Her children
either
are
way,
fully
What's your
grown.
feelings there then if you have the respect for the Crown?
Sure. I
do you
mean,
feel about
listen,
that?
I would. Are you saying, do I have respect for the Crown, the institution of?
Yeah.
I was ready to fight a bitch. I was at Universal Studios last month, and it just happened to be a week after the Queen's passing. We're online, we're waiting to get on a ride. And ironically, there's a group of British guys in front of me, and they're chatting up the girl that's counting off how many people to go into the line and whatever. And she is like, oh, how do you feel about the Queen? And the guy's like, well, I'm from Windsor. I don't really care about the Queen. I was ready to jump. I'm like, well, I'm from New York, and I'm ready to fight you for the Queen's honor. So get out of my
Woman said,
way.
Zero
This-
effect on my life.
You have zero respect. Get out of my way.
We're
I want to
just
go on
adopting
Hagrid's
British
magical ride.
Yes,
And I've waited here an hour and a half, and you're pissing me off. So yes,
How do you feel
I
about
think
the Revolutionary War then?
history is uncomfortable. It's unpleasant, and it's something to learn from. I don't shy away from it. I embrace it. So
Who
I
won the
think
war, dude?
who
No,
won
the
the
Diana
war?
thing's terrible. That's
No, yes, and it's it's a tangled web, and it's a family drama, and the shit that we're never gonna know. But Chris and I will know because we're going to watch the show.
My brother
coming
probably
up.
watches that.
It's
He
a
always
decent
found
show.
the royal family to be fascinating.
They are.
It was of no
I didn't
interest to
realize-
me. I watched it subjugated against my will by my girlfriend, and I'll say, man, it's actually a charming show. I guess if I was to think of a good word for it, it's pretty
Well,
decent.
Downton
It's got some
Abbey.
good story to it.
No, it's
And
not.
then you
It's
look
just
it up and you're like,
finished and it's Downton Abbey, for Christ's sake. Although I have watched all of Downton Abbey.
no, but like
I knew you did.
you find out stuff that happened in history, and obviously it's like
Yeah.
it's an idealized version of it probably, but you like find out about these like giant natural disasters and like there was this giant mudslide that took place in like Wales, and like a school full of children got buried like in mud, and it was this fucked up thing, and it like actually happened, and I like it for that aspect. It's obviously not telling you the real version of what happened, but you can look into that and find out the actual story. Like there's some crazy shit. Marilyn will tell you that happened with the king's brother who abdicated the throne. And this guy ended up he was in Germany during World War II and like had meetings with Hitler where he advised Hitler to just bomb the shit out of Britain and that eventually they would give up. Like all kind of crazy,
Traitor.
like crazy shit. So it's a good show. But with that said, now that we found our common ground, what was it that you wanted us to tear each other apart over?
Okay.
Game of Thrones versus Lord of the Rings. Was that it? Is that what you
Guess
said,
the
Vin?
question-
I mean,
don't
it's
know
a
how to
false
pose the
narrative to
question.
me. I can't. I'm not going to talk shit on Lord of the Rings. I've never
Chris,
seen it.
That's the only way. You can't like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels.
That's true.
It's
Yeah,
not
you gotta have heat. You gotta have dirt.
Controversy.
As
Got
JR
a hot
says,
take.
gotta have
Oh.
dirt.
Right.
I've gotta have.
Marbles.
I mean, I think it's interesting that Chris had. I mean, not to be, Tolkien is the godfather of fantasy, but
He
you
is,
don't
he is.
you don't
Way around it.
have. And George R.R. Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, is like a massive
Would it
Tolkien
say-
fan.
Yes.
He
blank.
moderated the Tolkien biopic. They had like a little panel, and he was moderating it.
I'll be the
because-
first to admit that, like, he drew
Yeah.
inspiration.
Everything he's done is inspired by.
Yeah. So it's like one feeds the other. It's your predecessor in a way, but they do represent two very different styles of storytelling. One
Absolutely.
with intense violence, and
Some
the
would say
other,
history.
sure, more that's rooted in kind of a more. I mean, I hate to say realistic when you're talking about like freaking dragons burning people's
Yeah, don't get
bodies because-
distracted.
I would dare
You
to
know what I'm
say
saying,
that the
but-
comparison of Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones is the same as the comparison of Star Wars and Star Trek. You
Oh,
wouldn't have
that's good.
Star Wars without Star Trek, but they're totally different stories.
Yes,
And it's okay to
okay.
like both,
That's fair.
but it's like,
I mean, no, I get that. I know, I understand, but you're a clear fan of one over the other. You don't watch House of the Dragon, right? You don't watch Game of Thrones really either. Not into it.
Not a Game of Thrones.
well, that's why they can't have a true
yeah.
argument, because Chris never
I-
gave
well, that-
Lord of the Rings a shot, and Marilyn never gave House of the
And
Dragon.
and I
No, that's the
will,
best
you know,
argument. It's an ignorant argument, and that makes
yeah,
have
it's
to
the those are the
say-
best. It's-
I did watch the last 2 episodes of season 8 of Game of Thrones because I was at a watch party. And first of all, obviously I can't form an opinion based off of that. I'm well educated on how controversial.
Come on, Twitter
it
does all
was.
the time.
Yeah, but like to me, I could feel watching that, being like a third party to that fandom. I could feel the people seething as they were watching that, and I felt like this compassion as like a fellow customer of a different branch of the company. How pissed you were there, sitting there watching it, and also not to be like it's a
Wondering
ripoff
what it
of
was.
the end of Lord of the Rings, but tell me not that. The emotional boat scene of saying goodbye to Jon Snow while he's getting into the boat isn't Gandalf saying goodbye when he goes to the Grey Havens at the end of the Return of the King sequence, or this kind of like. It was also like a weird '80s film where Jon Snow's like just riding off into like the north and like peace
Worst
out.
fucking
sort of-
season, piece of shit didn't happen.
Yeah, some sort of like.
What?
Was it John Hughes like '80s film where they walk off into the sunset? Like to me,
The writers didn't know what to do.
well, that's how some Lord of the Rings fans think about Rings of Power. It's like you're not when you're alienating your customer, when you're pissing off your customer, are you a business anymore? I don't
Almost
know.
worse, because George R. R. Martin is still alive to like
Fair to
Correct.
be like,
to talk to about this and be like,
Yeah.
what should we do, George? And it's like, I mean, J.R.R. Tolkien's been fucking dead forever, so it's like,
yeah.
We
You
still
know,
got
he
a few
can't
more
really
years
help
with
you
George.
out.
He's 74 though, man. He's really he's working his way up there quick.
Climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
They were
Well,
talking about that at the show. It's pretty funny. They were talking about like, would you rather die in the middle of writing your book and leave all your fandom like on edge, or would you rather finish and feel that you've completed your, you know? And it wasn't really exactly in reference to Game of Thrones, but of course the whole audience is watching.
The
George
audience
answer this.
laughed because it was
Like,
the entendre or whatever you want to call it was there.
oh man, please don't
Marilyn,
die.
did you
Please
ever
finish.
did you ever read the Chronicles of Narnia or watch
Never
those?
read it,
Ah,
but
that
I
was
watched all the
first-
films.
What did you
First
think of
book is
those?
Amazing. That movie's stupid compared to the book.
So there's a guy on YouTube that I if I ever have a 3 a.m. panic attack, I can watch his videos and he makes me feel better. It's God, what's his name? Captain Midnight. He's like such a soothing voice. Anyway, so he's cool, and he has a video where it's called "The Death of the Chronicles of Narnia" franchise, and he talks about how it just kind of just spiraled into this like toilet flush, and everyone just like forgot about it. It's really sad. I mean, I know that C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were friends. I know that they kind of like,
They were
discussed.
part of a writing
Same
guild
circle.
together, and they used to compare like works and stuff. They used to meet up at this pub called Eagle and Child. They used to call it the Bird and the Baby.
Oh wow.
And they used to meet up, and I know that Tolkien was like furious with C.S. Lewis because like C.S. Lewis would write a book and then put it out. He wouldn't edit it. He
Yeah.
wouldn't rewrite or anything. He would just put it out. And Tolkien's like redrawing the map for the 6th time and shit, and taking forever to put his shit out.
It's like our boy Phil. Where's Phil at? Phil's in the crowd.
Billy there. Lovely to meet you.
He's there. He'll tune in at least.
Student.
Eventually, he'll be there.
Like, if you're asking if I enjoyed the films, I mean, well, here's the problem. Okay, so at the start of first round of lockdown, whatever, Disney Plus had recently come out. My sister and I sat down and we're like, we're gonna watch every fucking movie of our childhood and just live in it and like absorb it. And it ended up actually just destroying the memories we had of every single one because you realize that it doesn't hold up to your expectation of it. And Chronicles of Narnia, unfortunately, was one of them. I know it's geared toward children. I know it has like more of a literal Christian theming because you have like Father Christmas comes out of the snowy wood and gives the children presents and their weapons.
Aslan is Lion Jesus, yeah.
Yes, like this Lion Jesus energy, and like and no shade, like that's cool for what it is, but like for me,
Everything's inspired by the Bible.
everything, you can argue that Tolkien has very strong Catholic references, but like, and he absolutely does. Yeah, but like to me, are you asking from like a fantasy perspective, or just like did I base
like a fantasy perspective, like just as a fan of other fantasy works, like where you rated it. In fact, what's funny is I kind of grew up with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because my mom used to work for the public library, and there was a BBC production of the story of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I used to watch it over and over. It was really campy, and it's probably something that would not hold up now, but I remember enjoying the shit out of that. And when I found out the guy that created that was friends with Lord of the Rings guy, I was like, oh my God, it's ridiculous. And, but I just think it's interesting how like married a lot of these fantasy stories are in sense of recurring themes. And, there's other stuff that's out there that people haven't even given a shot to. Like, back in the 80s, there was a Disney movie called The Black Cauldron that was loosely based on a book series called The Chronicles of Prydain, written by Lloyd Alexander. And that book series is outstanding. Like, fucking outstanding. I read all those books. I think there's 5 books in the series. And, like, that's another one that falls victim to, like, media that doesn't live up to the source material. And I think that, if they were to retell a story, or if they're running out of ideas, like a fully funded Chronicles of Prydain story that actually followed the story, I think would be as popular as any high fantasy story that they're putting out now. And I wish they would give it a shot.
It's a gift and a curse, like getting all this content, because I wouldn't have read Game of Thrones, and so I guarantee Chris wouldn't have read Game of Thrones if the fucking show didn't exist. So it's a double-edged sword, if like to Rob's point, that book series could just, fall off the face of the earth and never be seen again.
They used to teach that shit in school. I remember, like, in my head, you guys are talking about the
can't read list or something.
Chronicles of Narnia. you guys are talking about it, and in my head, I'm like not saying it out loud, but I'm just like, fuck that book series. Because I remember in like third grade, I had there was a report on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or whatever, Chronicles of Narnia, and you had to make, it was like an origami hat out of paper, right? But the hat, the dimensions that they provided on this like criteria list were too. It was a tiny little hat. I was like, that's stupid. I don't want a tiny little witch hat. So I got this big piece of poster board, and I made this big ass fucking witch hat. It was like origami, and you had to write your book report across this hat. And I spent days and days. I remember literally dripping sweat onto it, and it mingling with the fucking graphite of the pencil. And I'm a lefty, so I was smearing everything, and it was the most beautiful. I put so much heart and soul into this fucking report.
D.
No, the teacher fucking took points off. I got like a B, and she said it was too big.
You said
was that the story?
That's a story. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I was so.
So you hate The Lion, the Witch, and the
I
Wardrobe
made the
because
best
your
fucking
origami
hat
was too big?
book report. I harbinger a lot of. I remember the ills done to me even when I was in elementary school. I hang on to them for the rest of my life
Me
and
too,
nurture
though,
them.
To be fair, I remember that cunt teacher that fucking took my Batman figure away and then. never gave it back.
Oh yeah, you never forget those things.
You never forget that shit.
You keep watering that
Fucking
plant of hate.
Deep-rooted problems.
Oh my god. Can we talk about a franchise that should be revived from Disney, but they'll never touch for some reason?
What's that?
And that is 1994's Disney television, animated television's Gargoyles, which is the greatest animated
Gargoyles.
David.
show.
You're in the right room.
So
for this.
it's starting to make its
God.
resurgence because they're starting to put out toys again.
Yes.
I think
I
that they're
know.
working on a live action adaptation of it.
Are they?
Why?
Yeah.
I could swear that they announced something like that.
I follow the creator on
it's
Twitter.
It's all like speculation and shit, but they were working on something with the Gargoyles to bring them back because they're working on. There's like a petition out there and everything.
It is
To bring them
screaming
back.
for like a live action, like a CGI molding type of reboot. Like you can see, I rewatched it in the past year, and you can see how like it drops off in the third season. Like the budget wasn't there, like the writers weren't there, or whatever.
Only if Keith David comes back, though.
Only if Keith David comes back, who allegedly has said he will play Goliath till the day he dies. So we can hold that. We can hold him to that. But oh my God, you can have a Scottish cast. You can have a New York City-based cast. I would prefer it still take place in the 90s, so there's no cell phones. That's just me. But
What a time.
I know
GTA to do.
What a time.
what a time! What a time! Let's
How many
emphasize
plot
it.
lines and stories like can't be now that cell phones exist? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Everything
It
that's
ruins a
someone
lot.
web slinging in the skies, like freaking anything that's aerial. You could
Secret
take a picture of.
identities,
Yeah, like it just
Stuff.
ruins everything. Ruins the mystique.
geolocation.
I used to have a Gargoyles watch. Did you guys have that? I think that was like the big
No.
thing. Oh man, I just remember it's like one of those vivid memories, like
Yeah.
the design of the Gargoyles on the band. I always wish they made an Apple Watch band for it.
The Gargoyle.
Paint
If they're gonna bring
one.
back gargoyles,
one
bring
for you.
back what was the shark thing called?
Oh,
Street Sharks?
Yeah,
I used to fucking love Street
those
Sharks and
toys.
Extreme Dinosaurs. Remember that? Biker Mice from Mars. That was another one.
That's another one. Loved Biker
Shit.
Mice from Mars.
I used to have the
Mighty
play
Max.
set.
Makes me think of all these things.
Mighty
when you
Max.
say
Yeah, it was like
gargoyles.
Polly Pocket for boys.
Yep.
Little
Mighty
tiny,
Max, Mighty Max. I still remember.
Mighty Max, Mighty Max. Yeah, he used to have like the little play sets. You could like open them up and they were like skull heads when you close them and shit.
I don't. My
A
name
lot of fun.
Nay in the house.
The 90s were great.
Nay.
Creepy Crawlers. Remember that shit?
Oh yeah, creepy
Creepy
crawlers.
Crawlers. God. There's another
Were
one.
those edible? Those were edible, right? Or were
No,
they?
no,
they,
they used to make
were,
up and had edible
Don't
shit.
they weren't.
No, you
edible.
know what I used to do with the creepy crawlers? We used to like put like a fishing hook through them and use them as bait, and they always used to work.
Huh.
I used to catch fish with fucking scorpions and shit.
Oh,
Dude,
wow.
fucking.
It's to simultaneously catch
I
and
mean,
kill
whatever
the fish.
works.
Remember Light Bright?
If they're gonna bring back,
Of course.
these like fandoms, I just don't want to see them made into a live action movie like fucking Barbie, because that looks like the drizzling shits.
They're not using the
Yeah,
Barbie
that's it.
girl song. Like none of the
Apparent-
girls are gonna go for this. Go ahead.
I think
what
it's
were you
gonna be
say?
like a very ironic Barbie movie. I don't think it's gonna be. I don't know. They're trying to do something very.
That's when the
weird.
studios get into their own head and they're like, "We're going so meta with this. We're gonna do."
Yeah,
But
all
wait,
that."
is she a
that's it.
real person
You're
in the
right.
movie, or is she playing a toy?
Over-
that
It's not
came
the
to life?
studios. It's not the studios. They divorced her before there was any movie.
we know that it's a sexist icon, and we don't give a shit because you know.
Marilyn, let me hear the rant on the Barbie movie.
Yeah, let's go.
I don't know. All I see on Twitter is I pop on Twitter occasionally when I want to be even more depressed than I already am. And sometimes I
Amen.
scroll by and I see behind the scenes like somebody snapped in the bushes that Margot
That's not
Robbie
fair.
is in a blonde wig and Ryan Gosling is wearing something neon, and that's all we have. But the only thing that I know is that they're not using the Barbie Girl song, which is absolutely ridiculous. We're in a generation.
Maybe
of
that's a
10 years
swerve,
old.
though. Maybe they're just saying they're not gonna,
No!
and then they
You're
actually pull it
swerving
out.
always in the wrong direction. You're always milking the teat of nostalgia till it's fucking dry for the shit
Depends
that
who-
we don't want. But
It depends
when
who
you,
owns that song too. If
very
they
true. I know, I don't know them personally, but I haven't heard much.
can't even
from
keep
that
music on
group.
fucking Spotify.
Yeah, so
Like
like,
having the Transformers movie without the Transformers theme song. Same thing.
yeah, it's like it's like you're
Transformers.
always
That was a song.
yeah. You're milking nostalgia in all the wrong ways and never monetizing it where people want it.
Look,
To
even this
be honest,
Mario movie not having Charles Martinet as the main character. I mean,
I'm you
another
know
one.
what? Like the more I think about that, the more that makes me angry because this guy spent his whole life as Mario, and this should be like his big payday, his big payoff
he's
Hollywood
in the
moment.
movie, but he's not playing
No,
Mario.
fuck
Maybe-
that, and
but
then he's
I
not
think-
even doing the voice.
I think
Can
he's
do
a.
it, Chris
It's,
Pratt.
it's hard
Yeah.
though. I mean, you fucking.
Because
you
if
got
he
those
does the voice,
one-liners
people
for
are gonna
30
hate
years.
it. But that's the thing is, if he tried to do the Mario voice, everybody's gonna shit all over him for trying to do it. So I get it, but it's like you bleached everything that makes him fucking Mario. You know, wah, hoo, you know, like that's what we want to hear.
Italian. He's a plumber.
Yeah, well,
Uppity-boopity-beep-bop.
not anymore. Now he's fucking Greg.
It's Greg.
Fucking
Greg.
Chris Pratt.
Is
Every
he even
time
a
I hear the
plumber
name
still?
Chris Pratt, I think of an overcooked rodent.
No, they
Chris
like
Pratt.
treading on our dreams. It's fine. That's what they want to do. They
Hey,
want to buy everything, repackage it.
Maybe it'll be
Yeah.
good. We'll give
It's
it.
just like new.
I'm not seeing it, but you know.
I would
That's
rather
it.
watch the
That's
1990s Mario
horrible.
movie than
That's a
Oh,
terrible
which
does
fucking
not
movie.
exist.
I'm
That's
tired of
classic.
fucking-
Erased from the fucking
classic.
It
You
should
can't
be.
watch it anywhere.
First,
God.
dude, it's the first
Fucking horrible.
Orwellian thing that you can really point at and go, in this digital age, they've fucking erased every trace of it.
Oh yeah,
they
you
could, they'd
can't
delete the
stream that. You
Wikipedia.
can't buy it on
Nope.
iTunes. You can't
Can't buy
stream it
it.
on any platform.
Never
Good.
happened.
It's
And
no,
it's
dude.
got
Hey,
Bob fucking Hodgkins. Hodgkins.
Bob
got Dennis
Hoskins.
Hopper.
Bob Hoskins,
Dennis
Hoskins
Hopper,
was,
it's got fucking John
fucking
Leguizamo. It's like, wow.
Eddie
you
Valiant,
can't-
and Roger Rabbit.
I remember those fucking tiny head Goombas.
I remember the
I
dancing
hate that
Goomba.
shit.
I love
That's
that.
my
though.
least
What a
favorite
piece of
part of the
shit.
movie.
I was a little kid watching those dancing Goombas on the elevator. I thought that was the funniest shit
The
I've ever
fucking
seen.
mushrooms were just like
That-
mold on the wall.
To
Like,
Marilyn's
I like that, the
point,
fungus.
would be, if you could watch that now, you'd be like,
It's cult classic for
Fuck
being bad.
this.
You know what I mean?
yeah, it's like,
You gotta be
what,
on
Killer
fucking
Clowns
acid.
from Outer
Koopa, like,
Space?
are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah,
Terrible.
smoke some-
It's a fucking horrible movie. They should feel bad. They should feel terrible. Everybody that was part of that should feel terrible for the rest of
Wow.
their lives. It killed Bob Hoskins' career. Fucking guy was in Roger Rabbit.
I don't
and
know,
he did
man. I was a
Super Mario,
child,
and it was
so-
all over.
I loved
was
it
in
as a
Hook.
child.
Hook was probably
Even
Why
better.
they
Hook
haven't
couldn't save his
touched Roger
career.
Rabbit again? How come they haven't remade
Ah,
Roger
don't do
Rabbit?
that either.
Because you can't get the fucking Looney Tunes and the Disney characters to agree anymore.
That's
yeah.
true.
Oh, that's a
Wow.
no. Yeah.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
You'll
see
never
Donald
be able
Duck,
to see
Mickey
Bugs
Mouse
Bunny
with
and Mickey
fucking
Mouse in
Mickey
a movie
Mouse?
together again.
No.
I want another
Hey,
mask.
Bugs, I think you better let him have it. All right, I warned you.
I want another The Mask with Jim Carrey.
Why?
No.
No,
They
no.
had the son of the mask. It was terrible.
No, but that's my point. It wasn't Jim Carrey. I want Jim Carrey
Can
as an.
never get
Listen,
it.
hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out.
That shit anymore.
He's an old man now. Maybe him and fucking what's the name of the actress Cameron Diaz. That
Cameron
was her.
Diaz.
That was her
Yeah,
debut
okay.
movie, by the way.
Jeez.
Maybe they
was.
divorced. You know, he's doing
That
his
was like
own
my
thing,
puberty debut.
and he comes across the
Okay.
mask again one last time. Come on, Jim Carrey.
No.
I'd be there
No.
for it.
Chris is
wouldn't.
brainstorming ideas. I mean, they're revolutionary.
You know what remake I want, which I consider to be the scariest movie of all time? I think it's 1994's The Page Master, starring Macaulay
wow.
Culkin.
That's a great movie.
That's another one that
The
disappeared.
scariest movie. I
Remember the
cannot
video
even
game.
watch that in the dark. It is
you were
horrifying.
gonna
Fucking
say My
Dopey
Girl.
Book and the
Oh my god! And the
Whoopi Goldberg was
LSD,
another
the
book.
bleeding colors, and like everyone's on drugs. It's just
Yeah, that's
it's
what made him good.
horrifying.
That's why the
Oh
old
my
cartoons are the
God.
best.
The
Macaulay
scariest
Culkin's
thing.
whole life was on drugs, so I mean,
He was,
He's fine now.
yeah, he looks like he was
Is
on.
he,
Married
though?
to Mila Kunis
I
originally,
don't
right?
know.
Is he though? Macaulay Culkin's not married to Mila Kunis.
He was.
No,
What?
forgot her name from Disney.
Yeah, Mila
Did
Kunis
Brenda.
dated Macaulay Culkin fucking
They
before.
did?
Serious?
I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
God damn it, Meg.
Good for him.
Wow.
I don't know much about that kind of shit, but yeah, let's see.
What the heck? No longer is he home alone.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they want to do that. They're like, why does the internet try to keep make that happen? Like, why would you
What's
want
that?
Like Home Alone remake or whatever with Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, no, the fucking
Oh,
Hocus Pocus
one
2
minute.
they had to make. Like, they're literally just remaking everything.
Worst movie ever. Hocus
I
Pocus.
didn't see it.
I didn't see
I
the
didn't
new one.
bother.
The original Hocus Pocus is so awful. I don't know how people love it.
A lot of people look at it
Uh,
through nostalgia goggles. It really
yeah, we
like
dated for
screams
8
like the
years.
'90s and Halloween. Like
Should be ashamed of themselves.
if you grew up through Halloween in the '90s, definitely felt that way. The costumes and the jackets and like all that shit. It just brings me back. I think that's why a lot of people think fondly about that movie. But that was arguably the best Sarah Jessica Parker episode because after that, she just looked like a foot.
Sex, great show. I'm a huge fan.
I can't.
Okay.
Hocus Pocus?
No.
Or Sex in the City.
Sex in the City, baby.
Oh.
No.
Harry,
I've never
Bradshaw.
watched.
Steaming pile of shit.
I've never watched
I
it.
Oh my
the
God.
first
You know what?
season with Sam. I was like,
This is
all
my
right.
home-
Was it good?
The show?
You know, not.
It's an HBO show.
No.
That's the only reason. The only reason I'm giving it
No.
any possibility
I'm a-
that maybe it
I'm a
was good
guy,
was that it
it's
was an
not-
HBO show.
First of all, if I gotta be trapped here with a bunch of screens of testosterone all around me, someone's gonna have to watch at least one episode of Sex in the City.
I've watched.
because-
It ain't gonna
Okay.
be me.
Seen it.
I know.
I've
What's the
seen it.
what's the guy's name?
My girlfriend tried to
Mr.
get me to
Mr.
watch,
what?
and I said absolutely not.
Mr. Big. There it is. Yeah, I know Mr. Big. He
Listen.
fucking dies
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
Peloton too.
He does. He
I
does.
bet
die.
you know Mr. Big.
But they'll remake that
Big.
one too. They already have, and it was a horrifying
My nickname for my belly.
No,
season.
that was a product of the times.
Ricky
You
Ricky
can't
fucking
remake
loves
that.
Sex in the City, so bang. All right, there you go, Joe.
Did he say? I don't actually see that. Oh yeah, there you go.
Says, I love
He
Sex
said
in the
it.
City. Courtney votes Chris.
For what?
I don't know actually.
President?
What are you voting for?
Off the
Probably
show?
off the show.
Off the
Yeah,
show,
Courtney was
yeah.
waiting to stand there on the
I
fucking
would
outside
Marilyn
so that
for-
she
for
could.
Chris.
Chris, did you know that this was actually your goodbye show, and I'm your
Yes,
replacement?
yeah.
Yeah,
Like, we
Joe's
just did
taking
Kathy
over all the
Lee.
streaming
Yeah,
duties.
good
Joe's
luck.
gonna stream the whole
You're
show.
Kathy Lee. I'm
Marilyn
Mr.
Mutiny
Big.
over here.
I'm no, who was
Ripoff.
Megan McCain, who was kicked off the View? Who was
I'm talking Regis and Kathy Lee, baby. I ain't talking The View.
oh.
Yeah, but Kathy Lee deserved to be
the
kicked
the
off.
View is
They
more
did not
comparable.
deserve to be kicked off, and Regis stayed. Give me a break. They wanted a
Regis
younger
Philbin
teen
is the
on
reason
that
why
show.
that show happened.
And then it
Let's
became
be-
Michael
let's be
Strahan,
real.
so fucking cookie crumbles,
Wasn't
Yeah.
it Ryan
Became Michael
Seacrest
Strahan.
for a time?
Well, Ryan
I have no
Seacrest
idea.
is
I just
now
know
currently
he's-
on the show
Michael
with
Strahan is a football player.
Live with Kelly and Ryan.
yeah, it's Kelly and Ryan.
Kelly
Marilyn,
and Ryan.
did you see that I even gave you your own font for
Michael
your
Strahan
nameplate?
had enough. He didn't want to do it no more.
Where?
Uh,
Is
I
that
can't see it.
not- I
You gotta
can't
go to
see
YouTube.
it.
You gotta go to YouTube.
Special guest
Right.
Marilyn, I even gave you like a nice little like Calvin Klein font because I know you're a diva.
Ooh.
I wanted you to stand out.
No,
Oh
I'm a
my-
diva.
Bougie.
Honey, between the two of us, I don't think I'm the most diva. I think you are.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
There goes Joe.
Melvis.
Slapping his hand.
Yeah.
Ring the fucking bell. Ring the bell. Ding ding. Here we go. Let's
Ding
go. with
ding.
Oh my
that.
god.
Oh my god.
It's
So,
between
Marilyn,
Joe and
what do-
Chris.
what do you- what do you-
truthfully. They
what are
don't
some
know
of your
it, but
other
the biggest
fandoms?
egos is between those two.
Oh god. My other fandom. So
Yeah, like what are you
honestly,
into?
What am I into? Well, when I'm not railing against the corporate machine for ruining Lord of the Rings, in
Working
my
for
spare
and railing
time-
again.
in my spare time, I am a huge period drama fan, which was also murdered. All the things I love this year were
Crown.
murdered. So The Crown, but most notably, I'm a huge fan of Jane Austen, of all like 18th century female writers, the Brontes. My favorite thing to do is watch every adaptation of Jane Eyre and just sit there and stare at it and just read the chemistry between.
You're into like historical movies
think
and
that-
stuff
Oh,
like
yeah,
that?
historical dramas. Yeah, period dramas.
Have you ever seen Last of the Mohicans? I love that movie.
I
It's a
actually
great
haven't.
movie.
That is on my
That's a
list.
really great movie.
is on
Daniel
my
Day
list.
Lewis plays Hawkeye.
Daniel Day.
And,
No, wait.
it's
What was the
fantastic
movie we went and saw? We did like a little show about it. The Ridley Scott movie, like just this past
We
year.
have discussed
I didn't
it,
see
yes.
that.
What was it?
The
Did you
The
see
rape
it?
movie.
The Last Duel. That's what
The
it's
Last
called.
Duel.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see that
No,
one?
I have not seen that. I know that he got a lot of criticism, and he had some things to say about it.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott about the reception of the film.
Right.
But to
Yeah,
be
he chose
honest,
to bash Marvel movies.
yeah, like I'm not sure if that was like the best PR.
He got his
do.
ass handed to him for that.
But also,
did.
I don't think we're living in a time period where we are doing any kind of historical
It's true.
film or any type of Titanic or even like to make a stretch like The Mummy or something.
Love
A
The Mummy.
historical base. The Mummy is the greatest film of all time.
Oh
You
my
know, it's
God,
great.
with Brendan
Hey.
Fraser, man.
Brendan
that's
Fraser, he wants to come
classic.
back. He
Yeah,
wants to
oh
come
my
back.
God.
I
Oh
would
my
be
God,
there
I'm
for
so
that.
ready.
Imhotep, dude. They
I'm
got to
so
bring
ready.
back Imhotep if they're gonna bring
Yeah.
everyone together. I want
about
Ardith.
They do.
who
I
was
want
that guy?
the Ardith dude, Ardith Bay, the guy that's you remember?
Bugs. I
Man,
hate
anyway.
Bugs.
Oh, the main bad guy from the
No,
original.
no, he was
Mummy?
like the badass guy that was also in Deuce Bigalow.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
you remember the
Linear
badass guy? They
character.
got to bring him,
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yeah.
You bring them all back.
Yeah.
I always felt the guy that played the bad guy in the Mummy would have made a great Lex Luthor, based on like the Superman animated series that they made.
He was
I could
It's a
see
lot
that.
like that
Titanic.
cartoon.
He was the villain in Titanic, and he was.
He
fucking,
was.
Oh yeah, you're
Ferris.
right. He was.
What are you talking
No,
about?
no, I think he just looks like him. I don't think it was
He's
actually
not
the same
Billy
guy.
Zane, Joe.
No, it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
That's
different
not
guy.
Billy Zane, the villain.
that's-
No, he
No,
just
it's a
looks.
different guy.
He just looks
No, you're
like him.
mixing them up.
Yeah, I can see how you. I can
They
see.
do have a similar looking
Yeah,
face.
Billy
Yeah.
Zane is the bad guy in Titanic.
Just because they're both bald doesn't mean freaking Emotep is Billy Zane.
No.
Joking.
No, I could see. I could see how you.
Winslet is the bad guy in Titanic because she's a selfish fucking bitch that was
I like
living on that
him.
fucking staff.
I like when Joe yells
Jack,
and the
and
mic
she
cuts out
fucking let him
'cause he's
fucking
yelling.
die and drop.
Okay. Little Miss Anti-Feminist. Okay.
You know, he said, "Don't let go, don't let go." She lets go. He
Am I
sinks to the bottom of the ocean.
You know
That's all I'm
what?
gonna
Me-
say.
me and
Because the
James
fucking
Cameron
ship that came to
would have a
save them
different
came like 3
opinion.
seconds later. They could have
Right.
possibly saved his ass. He could have fit on that fucking door. I don't give a fuck what you
He
tell
did
me.
not fit on the door.
Bowels of the
He could have
fucking
gotten on the
goddamn
fucking door.
ship. Fucking
I would've went
axed
looking-
Fucking goddamn.
Well, like, look for
handcuffs.
something else. You're telling me nothing else floated in
you
the
know,
fucking water
it's
over
just a
there?
plot point.
Unbelievable.
Back, Marilyn, you were making a point though before we started gushing about all of this. Though you were saying they don't really make a lot of like history. I mean, I feel like they were really dipping into that when they made like 300, which was obviously like ridiculously testosterone spike TV fueled, movie take on
It's a
history.
great movie, though.
It's a great movie.
It's not part of
Xerxes
this
is like, oh
This
man,
is Sparta.
all you have
Became
to do is
Cersei.
bow to me.
Not
Yeah.
became,
So
but
to your
Cersei.
There was
point,
a sequel to
Our
300. They
dearest
had that already.
friend. Our
It's pretty
dearest
They had
friend
TRT
Darren-
like at the buffet
Yeah.
there though. They were literally.
Darren,
just
if
like,
you're watching, our dearest friend, I have had many
Love Darren.
conversations about
Darren's here?
I think what did I no, I don't know if
think
he's watching.
so.
I told him to watch.
I love
Hi,
him.
Darren.
I love you, Darren.
Who is truly the Tolkien scholar amongst us all. But
He is.
we had discussed the kind of like trying to be historical wink fantasy adventure films of like the late 90s, early 2000s, and like Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom. I believe that's another Ridley Scott film, if I'm not mistaken. I think that is when they do the Crusades, 300, the second 300 film. I think The Mummy. You could probably
Troy.
maybe Troy. Oh my God.
Troy and
And
what was the
like,
other one?
No, there was a really big flop.
Spartacus.
There was one that was a really big flop.
Who the fuck played the Penguin
It
again?
was the one for was it Troy? I think Troy was.
No, not Troy. The other one.
Colin Farrell?
Alexander.
Was it that? There was
Colin
another one.
Farrell?
They had Alexander with
Titans, Gods of
Rosario
Titans. something.
that was bullshit.
They could be hit or
Yeah.
miss. Those. I mean, I feel like they always do like a world. What was the recently? There was that World War II movie or World War One.
That's
it
coming on
was named
Netflix. It
after the
just came
battle.
out.
It was named after the Great Battle.
Oh,
I'm mad at myself. Dunkirk. Dunkirk.
Dunkirk.
Yeah, Dunkirk.
Dunkirk
right?
was Christopher
Are you
Nolan.
talking
World
about war
War
films, or are we
II.
talking about like early 2000s ancient history, bad costuming films?
I mean,
Just
it's
historical
history, and
tone.
I feel like history is anything before like
There was a
World War
Gladiator,
One.
too. That was another
Yeah.
one.
Oh, it's okay. Antiquity.
Antiquity.
Is obviously the ancient era. Then you get into period dramas, which is anything before World War One, and then past World War One into like, I guess
The Roaring
90s,
'20s.
whatever.
I just watched Gladiator, so love.
Oh, Gladiator, great. A Gladiator, another that's
I was just
obviously
saying, yeah.
of the same time
Wow.
period. I don't think we're going to
Kiss
see a
my
lot
hand,
more
brother.
of those. I think, to be honest,
They wore themselves out because they did like 12 of them in like 3
Sure.
years.
Yeah.
It's like the age of the Western, the age
It
of
always comes back, like fucking
sci-fi
Ben-Hur came
film.
out back in the day, and all
Sure.
that shit.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
I'd
So I
love a
think
good
this
Western.
cycle-
Be cool if we got a nice, like a
Yeah.
cool Western.
There are some great westerns
Lieutenant
out there,
Human.
like my dad's favorite, Open Range.
Open Range, still got to watch it. Looked awesome.
I mean,
was
can I
definitely
Young
ask
watching that.
Come on,
a
man.
controversial
Young Gun.
question though? I personally, I think we're at the tail end, or we're at the little trickling end of the age of superhero films. I think we're
Braveheart.
getting exhausted.
Nice, Rick.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you don't think so?
No, because they
Like this
honestly,
blinded
I
sight.
would have agreed with you had they had the rights to all the characters off the get. But now
Okay.
we're about to see the dawn of the Fantastic Four in the MCU and the
X-Men.
the X-Men and mutants and stuff. So they have a lot more storytelling that they'll have a lot. I think there's just going to be content for
They're
at least the
cycling
next 10,
characters.
15 years.
It's
At
they're
the very
cycling
least.
stuff out. Is what they're
It's
Content
gonna
is
it's
one
gonna get
word.
snuffed out eventually because it's
Or
gonna
maybe
become
it's
so
fatigue.
super saturated
Yeah.
that even fans like
There's
us
fatigue.
aren't gonna be able to keep up with everything that comes
Yeah.
out. Well, I missed this show and that show and this and that, and now all of a sudden I was a part of this from the start and I don't know what's going on, kind of thing.
Aren't
But
we already
I
at
think-
20 MCU shows?
I
It
think
just
that's
keeps-
gonna be another 10, 15 years from now.
Oh,
To be
God, it
honest,
could
the
take
le-
another decade.
I think now that because
it.
they have, just like with the comic books, there was such a broad audience to meet. So not every comic book reader read the same comics. So some characters were built for different audiences. And now that they, have acquired everybody, and they've, mixed in this Disney Plus format, and they're still finding their way. I don't think they truly know what makes these things successful or not, because I don't think any one of them has truly hit the stratosphere. It hasn't ever hit like a Game of Thrones type fandom. Mandalorian has done it. I think that's one of the examples that there's the right ideas there, but it has to be good. It has to be done by people who give a shit. If anything, that's all I fucking want. If you're gonna keep coming out with this shit, fine, but it has to be done by guys like Filoni and Favreau and Kevin Feige overseeing Marvel. I think most.
I'd love to see like a Knights of the Old Republic and shit like that,
Fuck
or
yeah. I'm in.
Dawn of the Sith kind of thing. Maybe like a
back.
show called The Outer Rim that kind of like delves into the unknown and shit.
So
That
that
would be
stuff's for
fun.
me though. I'm a sucker for the Marvel stuff. So I know, Marilyn, that there's definitely a high saturation. Did you watch any She-Hulk? I feel like that would be one show that might appeal to your.
No, my relationship with Marvel ended when they killed off the show Agent Carter. That was the end of our
Oh,
relationship.
Peggy.
That was the end. I went to go watch
Give
Civil
Jennifer
War.
Walters a good shot because I think you'll like her.
All right, fine. But I went in with my metaphorical cigarette waiting for Captain America to die in whatever film they were like teasing that he might die in, but he really didn't. Was I like partially satisfied with the ending of Endgame? Was I so excited to see Haley Atwell, love you, on film as Peggy Carter? Yes. But I think, to me, I think I represent the normies or whatever the hell people call them of comic book fans, where I think we had a great decade, loved it. It was a great ride. We had so much fun. And then now we just get to this place where it's like, if you don't watch these 20 shows, you're going to miss the subtle nuance in the big Avengers film when it comes out. And I feel swallowed in it. I'm like drowning in all this content. There's no way in hell I'm going to sit through all of this.
Can I just say it's what I said?
That's a great point.
If I say it, I get strung up on a cross. But when you say it, they're like, "Oh, it's a great point." I can't keep up with it. I can't. It's like if I miss one movie, then I miss two, and then all of a sudden, like 4 movies came out, and I'm a prick. It's
the first. They're the first.
There's a difference. No. She's talking about missing TV shows. You missed like the major motion pictures. Like you missed
I
everything.
watch any of these.
So
It's all of
a
it.
Difference.
When you're generating content at such a speed that, film, I mean, not to be like, oh, I know the film industry, but this is kind of unprecedented where it's like TV show, finish, consume, ingest, move on, press play to the next one. It's
I think their point is to have endless content because when one show ends, another one begins, and it's like
there's no room.
They never want to see you leave the streaming platform. That's the idea.
They're all
They want you to
competing
keep
for your
watching and
attention.
watching and watching.
Yeah, it's like there's no room to sit, digest.
Because I think they saw that when The Mandalorian came out and it was a huge success, and they didn't have another season for 2 years.
Yeah.
They're like, we need to start filling these gaps. So they started putting a lot of shit in the tank, and then you had Miss Marvel, and then fucking Loki, and I mean these things they're firing them out like nothing.
mean they're
I
good?
still haven't seen Miss Marvel.
One
And
thing
to be
that
fair, I
with
haven't even
Marvel-
caught up on Andor, and Star Wars is my
Yeah.
favorite.
I haven't
fandom
seen
of all
any
time.
of it, but you guys all seem to
I
enjoy
watched the
all
first
that you're
episode,
seeing.
and
I will
it
say
seems
that.
to be good. It's promising.
I
I'm sure that
knew-
it's going to pick
we
up,
knew-
but
we knew heading into this too, like, because in terms of the business side of things, like they were busy acquiring fucking Fox when Fox had all like these major properties like Fantastic Four, these tent poles that you would call them. So like this phase after Endgame was going to be awkward because they didn't finish the acquisition in time to start developing the product. So there was going to be a little bit of like wrapping up what we just did and trying to kick off something new. I'd say there's only two or three things that you'd actually have to see to even have any idea of what's going on. But the first movie that's really going to kick this next thing off that I think would be, if you wanted to actually see the next phase, would be the Ant-Man movie. And pretty much everything prior to it, you don't. It would help.
I'm in
inform you.
the burnt out boat. I don't want to see Ant-Man. I don't want to see Black Panther. Can't take it anymore. I can't watch anything else
There
on
has
Marvel.
to be room.
Really,
to
I thought
take
you were
a break.
fully into
I
all
can't
this right
wait.
now, Joe.
I'm so excited for fucking Ant-Man.
Mm.
You need to take a
No.
break, build hype, and come back for your product. You oversaturated the market and you overwhelmed your customer. Not to be a businesswoman, here's my shoulder
We
pads.
absolutely did do that.
But like,
I mean,
you
there's a hardcore
totally-
audience that will
Yes.
consume everything, and then there's like an audience that'll watch the main stuff. But like to consume everything that they have, it's just too much, and I just not time to do all that. No time to
I
watch
do it.
Ben is a movie studio executive, puffing out and being like, "These people don't know what they want. I'm gonna
well,
tell them what they want to watch."
Vin's all about Marvel, Rob as well.
Marvel's my area.
That's his.
Chris
I've been
can't
a
watch
Marvel
it because he's
fan
too busy
since I was a little kid,
listening
so.
and rereading fucking Game of Thrones and rewatching it. So I get it.
Too busy playing video games, but yes.
I love to
That's
sit with content, rewatch it, discuss it, treat it as a work of art, not a piece of content that you press play and continue on the hamster wheel. I feel like my brain, I'm not even using my brain at that point when
I
I'm
agree.
watching one after the other, after the other, after the other. It just like, to me, we can go down this rabbit hole all day, but like, there is no making something for just one well-rounded piece of artwork and releasing it. It's always a piece of a different product that's coming out down the pipeline. That's just me.
You have to have space because then you salivate the next thing that's coming out. When did Game of Thrones end? The last season? What year was that? Was it 2019?
Whoa. Don't use that
2018?
as an example. As a piss poor
It's an
example.
example.
No, but it is.
But there was
What
time
is it?
for people to digest,
It ended like
process. and-
ass.
You have okay, but it ended. But you had a couple of years in between before anything else in that realm started up
ended-
again. So
If it ended with a boom, they would have been rushing to get that next show out, the one that they canceled, but because it ended so flatly, and people were just so as
Oh, it
Marilyn
vanished
said,
from pop
seething.
culture. Yeah,
it
but
people.
didn't exist. It was like,
It's-
out of the zeitgeist. We talked about Game of Thrones for like the whole year prior to House of the Dragon, and it would like barely get into the conversation. Like it would be kind of forced into it, and then we'd always roll back to, man, that ending fucking sucked, to the point that Chris was sick of talking about it. And luckily, the House of the Dragon show did everything they needed to do, which was revive and revitalize the interest. But they would have pedaled to the metal if that show ended well. I know that.
yeah, but they
had
did
that
the
other
same
show
thing
ready
with
to
Star
go.
Wars. The Star Wars sequels came out and everyone shit on them. Then they came out
They
with
stopped.
Mandalorian. And everyone's in the fucking Star Wars again.
That took
Mandalorian
2 years.
came
That
out-
took 2 years.
Yeah.
That took a while.
I think
Still,
the
but now that
challenge.
Mando's popular. You had Book of Boba Fett. You have Asuka, Ahsoka. You have Andor. You have all these shows pumping
Can't wait
out from
for
the Star Wars
Ahsoka.
universe.
And now I'm already starting to fall. I didn't see Andor yet, so yeah, it's already kind of
I've only
starting to
seen
happen.
the first episode.
I mean, I'm always happy for more Star Wars content, but I did miss
Andor's
Andor.
probably one of their best shows.
My
I
biggest
can't wait until they
concern
start folding Grand Admiral Thrawn into life.
that
action.
oh my god, don't even
Coming.
start stirring that fucking pot,
Coming.
dude. I can't wait.
Definitely.
Grand Admiral
With this
Thrawn.
Andor show and shit.
My concern is when people try to leave a mark on something that's not really theirs.
Ryan Johnson. That's
That's I didn't even need to see like
Here
that's
we
all I
go.
needed to say. Once that happens, where
Piece of
they start
fucking
even
shit.
but even Benioff and Weiss, they were like, no, we want it to be this way, and it's like, you can't think that way. When people try to
Fucking
leave their
piece
mark,
of
it ends up
shit.
just leaving a stain, not a mark. You got to
Yeah,
find
fucking
somebody that
skid mark on the underwear of fandom.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, it's you have to respect the series and, you know, the dogma of whatever it was that at the core. You can't fucking try to change too much or people start
So
getting
there's
testy.
one show that does that. We haven't gotten the chance to talk about it yet. And now that Marilyn's on the show, I want to talk about Cobra Kai. Because Cobra Kai
Happy
doesn't shit
birthday,
on the
Ralph
karate.
Macchio.
Happy birthday, Ralph. You're my buddy. You're my
Long
favorite.
Island
61
Zone.
now, right?
BG.
That
I believe he's 61, which is
I
fucking
think he is
amazing.
61 today. Yeah.
I saw him at New York
There
Comic Con. I wasn't close enough to be able to talk to him or anything, but
Get him on the
I saw
show.
him and he looked fantastic.
on.
Like you'd never know the guy was 61. He looks like he's my brother's age.
Watch. He's the next guest. He's the next guest on the show.
That'd be fucking wild if we got Ralph Macchio to talk.
Honestly,
about
do
it.
I think. Ask him if he's free.
his email. I have his email.
He's definitely not
Email
free. He'll be
Mojo.
expensive.
You know,
Well, this show is going to grow leaps and bounds now that Mayor's on this show, and it's just going to skyrocket us to monetization, and then we're going to start getting more and more guests on it.
Yeah,
So
the stratosphere.
Absolutely.
all
I
of
am
our
the
coworkers will be
reason
watching.
why Ralph Macchio.
yeah,
Hey,
absolutely.
they weren't watching you before. It was because of me. So
That's
I want
what
some.
I know.
I want at least free pizza out of this. I want a free
And
lunch.
every season
It
of
takes a
Cobra
year.
Kai, every episode of Cobra Kai has been phenomenal. It's my
Okay,
favorite
so
show.
do you want
that's
to?
on
We
television.
can. So Cobra Kai to me, and I'll preface like I am not a child of the '80s. I'm a child of the '90s because I'm young. But I will say this: like I obviously have a lot of older siblings, older cousins. I'm very much like living in kind of like their time period in the media that they consume. So Cobra Kai was an interesting thing to return to and like watch all the movies again and whatever. But I think between that and Top Gun, it's the only two pieces of media this year that have done the 80s justice, that
Love
have
Top
given
Gun.
it
Absolutely.
Love
the
that
respect
movie.
it deserved, instead of, because I know a lot of Star Wars fans have very much been not happy about the way that their quote legacy characters have been treated on film, that they are sidelined by the newer characters and kind of made to be a joke or made to be lesser than the ones that are really shifting into frame.
Chewbacca.
Yeah, so like stuff like that. But Tom
Didn't
Cruise
hug him?
came on and was like, I'm
Fucking
the
hate
head-
Tom Cruise.
I'm the head bitch in charge of this Top Gun. Like I am literally 60 years old and I
He
will be the
didn't
pilot
let
that
the
goes
movie come out for like a year. He
But
fucking
I-
literally
Maverick
told
is
them,
the best
"Fuck
movie of the
you!
year.
You're not
I
releasing this
respect
movie."
the hell out of it.
Yeah, of
Sat
course.
there at
They're-
home and I looked on Twitter every time they pushed it back. I'm like, this bitch better serve the greatest film of all time. And lo and behold, like, wow, like he delivered and gave a nice thank you in the beginning of the movie, which I know a lot of fans, myself included, like respected. I know it's kind of corny to say, or maybe it's
He's
all
a
a
piece
marketing.
of shit Scientologist, though.
Well,
by the way.
but he knows how to speak to his customer, respect his customer, and deliver on the
Good
product.
businessman.
He's a
Great
good. He
businessman.
knows what he's doing, and I think Ralph Macchio, if he were ever on the podcast, this is the question I would ask him: is that how did you
Coffee
avoid
boy.
the trap of bad '80s reboot where it becomes a joke? Because
I know why.
Tell us, Vin.
It wasn't made by a corporation. This fucking thing was like straight to YouTube season 1, and there are stewards and people who are involved who give a shit, and it's not sold out and then repackaged and made. The problem is the original people, it's hard to, I don't know what it is. They get, I guess everybody can relate. It's hard to keep going. George Lucas,
Sure.
fucking you name it. It's just hard. George Martin, it's trouble writing this book. Like it just gets to a point where the fandom is, it's such a, I don't know, it's such a boiling point that you're like, I got to walk away. So they usually sell out for huge money, whether it's Lord of the Rings or James Bond or the guy
Sure.
passes away,
Let's
you lose
speak
it.
to the boiling point.
But I think that's what makes that great. I did watch season 1 and part of 2, and the reason it feels so grounded is I feel like it's independent. It's just totally lacking any motivation to like make, whatever thing agenda you want to apply to a lot of the shows that get made. It lacks in that. It's just true to the material. It has a great I love the
Cobra
back and
Kai doesn't take itself serious, but it's serious, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
and he
Like, they
became a
never-
bad guy a little
Yeah,
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
They
he
won't-
became
they make
Yeah.
off-put gestures about the culture, how things are today. So Johnny Lawrence is your typical '80s guy that's just living in the past, and he doesn't know technology. He doesn't know how to do things. He's a macho guy where he's not used to the whole culture of the world today. and they're the actual opposite because Johnny was the rich kid in Karate Kid, and Daniel was this poor guy from Jersey with his single mom trying to move. You know, she's a working mom, and now it's the
Relatable.
opposite. You know, it's completely like flipped. So the rivalry they kept intact. They kept all the jabs. They paid homage to all the stuff that went on, all the
Mr.
little
Miyagi.
things, all the little details with Mr. Miyagi. There's been 2 shows that have been put out in the last probably 10 years that actually brought a tear to my eye, and one of them is Cobra Kai. You know, when Daniel goes back to Japan and he sees Komoko, his love of his life from Karate Kid 2, and the other one is when Luke Skywalker comes back in the Mandalorian. We were into that. But yeah, Cobra Kai for me is my favorite show that's in existence today, period.
I think it's a fantastic show. I've been enjoying it with my dad. My dad and I watch it together. And this has come from somebody who, blasphemous enough as it is, have not seen all of the Karate Kid movies. But I thoroughly enjoy the show.
Watch
And I
TV
think
in the
it's-
90s,
I think
bro.
it's
That thing was on
fantastic.
TV like every day.
We watch
It hits
tapes
you
a
a
lot.
different. If you watch Karate Kid 1, 2, 3, and then rewatch Cobra Kai, it hits you a different way. I promise you.
I believe it.
I never saw any
And it's
of
also
them.
they know their audience. They know that
No
they're
shit,
making...
Chris. You never watched the
Never
Karate
saw
Kid?
none of it.
Holy fuck!
Never saw none of
I
it.
can't believe it. Oh,
I'm
no,
pretty sure I saw
no,
Karate
no,
Kid
come
2. I
on.
never saw Karate Kid
Holy
3, and I've seen the
shit.
first one a million
Overrated.
times.
Just Chris is just like,
Right.
yeah, everybody's attacking
Chris,
me.
you taking a nap back there? What's the matter, baby?
He's enjoying the...
There's
It's
no
fucking toast.
My
We
bare
got Aaron
feet.
Rodgers here on the show today.
Yeah.
Every element.
Well, they know their audience.
It
back
just-
to
I
Karate
missed-
Kid's point.
When did it
making
come out? The Karate Kid. I think I missed it.
The 80s.
About 4 years ago.
It was
3
before my
years ago it
time. You
started?
know, it was like at that window
Oh,
where I just never really,
86, 5.
you know.
Star Wars is before your time, and you.
I didn't
still
see
watch
Star
it.
Wars until I was like fucking 13 with my brother.
So what? It
I'm
came
actually,
out
yeah,
before
you know what?
Karate
That's
Kid.
weird too, Chris. You have older brothers that who
makes no sense.
definitely
Makes no
that
sense.
the Karate Kid was, you know, made for them. I'm surprised that they didn't like. I feel like you probably just like did your own fucking thing. I can only imagine you as a kid. You probably were not hanging out with your brothers.
The only, I mean, me and Pat shared a room, and we
Oh,
did watch
Christ.
wrestling together in South Park, but that was about it. And then after that, they were always just driving their cars and blasting music like way louder than they should have. You know, it wasn't really. You know, when people blast, like the
Burger,
bass is so
childhood,
fucking loud
oh,
that
oh.
like it's shaking everything, like you can't even hear the rest of the song.
Brain. I think with the Karate Kid though, they know their audience. They know who they know who they're making that show for. They're not necessarily trying to capture a new audience per se. And I think that's why it's a show that like didn't get picked up originally.
But
It was probably something
But
they
it
had to go
did. Like the
independent.
first 2 seasons were on YouTube Red, and then Netflix
Yeah.
bought it, and it still
Exactly.
kept the same quality, even though that now
But it
this
was-
huge
it was
fucking
a s-
corporation kept it.
It was
They kept it,
established.
you know.
And it's
Yeah.
it's established, and you have stewards. Like the problem with Star Wars, I see, is like Kennedy was the steward, and she sucked. And then Filoni and Favreau came in and are actually hopefully now the stewards. You know what I mean? Like, so we have to like restart with the Star Wars shit a little bit. 'Cause those 3 movies fucking blow.
I guess they're hoping that
Um,
James Gunn will be the steward of the DC universe now, because he'll.
Yeah, it needs
be
people
taking
who
the helm
actually
over
give a
there.
fuck, and they're not looking at just the number. The
Cavill
shit's gonna
just
make
got a
money.
boatload of money to be Superman again, so we're gonna see another Superman movie.
He loves that role. He loves being Superman. I mean,
I
who
just
wouldn't?
fucking hate that
Who
he's not
wouldn't?
going to be Geralt of Rivia anymore.
Oh
Fucking
man,
hate
That's
that.
their fucking fault. To the other
I
point
know.
about this corporate shit, like these writers didn't like the original Witcher story, so they decided to like change things. And him being a huge fan and signing on to the show because he liked the games, because he's a huge fucking nerd and gamer, alienated him and alienated your lead actor. I was like, that seems so fucking stupid. And he just, he's comfortable walking away because they fucked it
Good
up.
on him, you know, for sticking to his guns, though, because he could have been another corporate sellout and make a fucking $1 million off of a shitty TV show until he ran into the ground. But he's
Absolutely.
above that. Henry Cavill, fucking king of the
Love Henry
nerds.
Cavill.
I mean, I kind of
Imagine
fizzled out
playing
on the Witcher
D&D with,
show.
like Henry Cavill and what's his name there, the other big D&D
Joe
guy.
Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello. Yeah, dude, they have big D&D sessions at his house.
I would love to get it on that. You know, Vin Diesel plays too. And
Really?
Seth
What?
Green is another one.
his
yeah.
family.
Wow.
It-
Did you know Vin Diesel back in the day? Funny enough to bring it full circle, he used to advertise for the Street Sharks. There
that's
are
right.
are
I do
corporate
remember
videos of him showing off all the characters and basically pitching it to, like, I guess, distributors and saying, you know, this is this character, and it's going to go along with this TV show that's going to come out, and these are the action features that these things do, and it's kind of funny to just watch a young Vin Diesel playing with fucking street sharks. Hilarious.
Vin,
But you know,
Diesel.
it just lends to the fact that like you never know who's secretly a nerd and shit. And they even have that the animated series, the Vox Machina, which follows the Critical Role D&D campaign. Basically, they did a campaign and it went like really successful, like streamed campaign, and they did a crowdfund and successfully funded an animated show based on the campaign that they played, and all the people that played in that campaign are voicing their characters in the show, which is pretty hysterical.
Let me ask you this: would you accept Vin Diesel as Geralt of Rivia?
Definitely
Get the
not.
fuck out of here.
Over fucking what's his name? The guy that's
Little
playing him
Thor,
now.
Baby Thor.
No,
Over the new guy.
no, because Geralt of Rivia doesn't have any family.
I feel like if this was like 9 years ago, that's what they would have done. They would have put Vin Diesel. But yeah,
No,
he'd be a good
Vin Diesel's
Geralt.
Too small. He's too small to be Geralt.
Small. I thought he's like this fucking brick house guy, Vin Diesel.
No.
Some brick.
He's shorter than The Rock. We know that.
Ow.
Yeah.
He's a lot shorter than that. The Rock's like 6'4".
The Rock's a tall guy.
Marilyn, did you have a good time tonight? Did you enjoy your time in the break room tonight?
Absolutely.
You're a
would spend my
natural.
life
Let me tell
in
you,
the
you're gonna be a
room.
star.
Thank you so much, Chris. We went from launching my comedy career to roasting Chris
Yeah, we
to
knew that was
talking
coming.
about.
You
our
never talked
favorite
about your
fandom,
hernia.
because you never brought it up again.
We got. We'll save that for
Keep
next time, I guess.
interjecting.
We want to hear your hernia
There's
story.
going to be a
A
next
big
time for
send-off.
sure. There's going to be a
Big
next time for
send-off.
sure.
This guy's just-
Next time in person.
And when you come back, we'll name the episode "The Marilyn Strikes Back." You know?
The hernia
Yeah,
returns.
the hernia. Honey, if that returns, my surgeon quit on me. She sent me a letter. She's not doing the business anymore. I'm screwed. I don't know what to do. So we better hope not.
Return of the
But-
Queen. There we go.
Do you want me to close the show? I have actually a story about The Rock, if you want to hear it.
Let's
Well,
hear
let's
it.
hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The story about The Rock.
So casually, I found myself in Berlin, as one does, and my family and I were in Berlin. We're standing in front of. We had walked the streets of Berlin, and we had seen them setting up for a movie premiere. We'd never seen that shit before, especially as a tourist. So they were setting up for the movie Hercules, the live-action Hercules, which we're like, isn't
Yeah.
that The Rock in that film? Like, what's up with
Yeah.
that? Okay, whatever. So we were walking past the, whatever. Towards the Brandenburg Gate, which is the big iconic gate, and the sun was setting behind it. It was, very picturesque. And we're sitting on a bench outside of the hotel. Do you remember Michael Jackson dangled baby blanket?
Yes.
So that hotel is
remember
right
that.
there in front of the gate. We're sitting there, and we know like the paparazzi are outside. And we're like, I wonder if The Rock is in that hotel. So I'm sitting and I'm watching the gate, the sun go down, and I just hear my dad yell, "Yo, I smell what The Rock is cooking!" And my head just shot up, and this big guy on the top floor just leans down at my dad and was like, "Hell yeah!" And it was fucking Dwayne.
Wow.
It was Dwayne.
Yes.
And then the
Yes.
This is the
Paps,
first time I'm hearing of this.
the Paps ran around the building. My sister was like filming it, like, because we caught a glimpse, and the paparazzi come up to us and be like, "You got a picture of him?" And we're like, fuck, I'm like, these people are gonna steal your camera. Like, put your shit away. whatever."
$10,000 I did.
Rats.
Fuck
I
yeah.
think no one offered us money. Like, they were
Yeah.
just like, "Yeah, cool," and then they like
Give me
walked away.
$1,000.
Yeah, you give me
But-
1,000
$1,000
more?
Fucking, they killed Princess Diana, and then they fucking.
Yeah, we made eye contact, and with The
Nice.
Rock, we talked to The Rock in Berlin. So if The Rock, if you
That's
ever
so
seen
funny.
us, that was us.
There you
So
go. You smell what The Rock is cooking?
we smelled what The Rock was cooking that night.
amazing.
That was So
Ooh.
it was a special moment. It was just travel.
Marilyn, you are
memory.
in high demand to make many more appearances according to the comment section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They love you. They want you back. They want you to replace Chris Sweet officially.
This is
So maybe the
actually
next.
this is it, guys. I mean, Chris, it's been a great run.
Yeah.
You opened the show for a whole year, and we thank you so much for that. We really do. Your contributions were invaluable.
If
And
you
now we're
want to
gonna-
take over the filming of it, then
No,
then
Joe-
maybe I'll
Joe
maybe
is
I'll do
gonna
that.
Joe's gonna do that. Joe
Yeah.
said
We're
Joe's
gonna
gonna
move
do
into
that.
a different direction.
Got it.
Yeah.
You know, the talent, the energy between the cast is really changing, and we thank you so much for being with us. But,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
going in a
thank
different direction.
you so
That's
much.
my
Can't
hope.
beat
My
that.
hope is to actually
can't-
disappear to behind the camera one day. It'd be great.
I can't beat that.
You know.
I'll become productive.
You and Courtney both know once I was gone, there was a massive void that could never be filled,
Okay.
and that
yeah.
you
Courtney
missed
left,
me.
like-
Come on, you. I know.
Yeah.
She acts like she's all
Void.
she's all tough, but I even got
Black
a
hole.
touching handwritten letter from Marilyn after I left, thanking
There was
me.
nothing handwritten. I've never handwritten anything to you. I
But
did
no, you-
text you and say, "Have a nice life." I did do that.
Yeah, and you also
and then
you made me beg you to come onto the show too. That's
Yes,
what
I
they.
did.
That's what
I made
I
you
had
beg
to. I had to make a
Yeah.
video for Marilyn.
Get a bend the
Where-
knee.
Where I had to essentially
Yeah.
kiss her ring.
Marilyn's
Can we
favorite
splice
video.
that in, Vin? After we do like clips, can we clip in like the bending
actual-
of the knee video?
The bending
Chris,
of the
Yeah,
knee.
I
You
no
gotta send that to me. I think you have that.
like Dorn. I
I
am
can-
unbent and unbroken.
I can make that happen.
We can
no
we
problem.
can make that. Yeah. That,
Yeah.
That's what she said.
That's cute. Yeah.
But no, we were definitely
Rose,
happy to have
so
you here.
strong.
We've
Thank
been
you so much.
we've been planning for
That's
it for
great.
quite some time, and I think there's no better time than tonight as the season
A highlight
premiere.
of my career.
Yes,
It's a
yeah,
could be
it's
the
all downhill
start.
from here.
Just the beginning.
Thank you so much. It really is.
We'll get you on a
the
stage in
very-
front of
Yeah.
people.
Your CBGB of your startup of your career. Like
Yes.
started off in the
Good.
CBGB.
I
love
and
that
then,
reference, Joe.
Started
Good
here.
We're
reference.
going
And
Radio
all-
City next. No problem. Here we go.
All of you can line up behind Sean Young and say how you were the influence, the
Listen.
impetus,
Well, those were not lining up
Video
behind Shawn
evidence.
Michaels, right?
yes, of
Right.
my
Sean
career ascension. Thank
This
you
is
so
admissible
much.
Marilyn
in
doesn't get
court.
that joke.
During the lawsuit, we'll play this to the entire
Yes,
court.
to the whole court.
Well, thank you for
Gonna
being
witness
our
this.
guinea pig
Yes.
for tonight,
So good.
as well as our special guest.
Rob,
Rob,
special guest of the Break Room podcast.
Yes,
You believe
it is
that?
an honor. It is the inaugural.
It only
guest.
took us a year to get a guest on.
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
like, you guys don't have other friends, but I really thank you so much
Ouch.
for the
So. Oh, we
honor
love you,
of-
and we're
not
really happy to have
not
you.
everybody
and
could hang with
friend
the in the
here.
big time, you know.
Yeah.
Cup
Coffee
of coffee
in the big time, yeah.
Oh, freak out.
Take us home, Robbie boy.
Guys, this has been another fun episode of the Break Room podcast. If you guys are fans, if you love the show, please like, comment, and subscribe. This is our friend Marilyn. Thank her for being on the show. She's been an amazing guest. The very first, might I add. And we love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Snoochie Boochies, and may the force be with you.